Welcome to Fanfiction Audiobooks. I teach in Naruto, and the system says I am Tsunade's student. Chapter 1: The Late Arriving System. Kitazawa's ninja school results were not ideal. Itachi Uchiha graduated from the Ninja Academy at the age of 7, while he barely graduated at the age of 13. Naruto Uzumaki became a savior at the age of 17, he fought with all his might to become a chunin at the age of 17. In this ruthless ninja world, Kitazawa is a ninja with no talent, no bloodline, and no backing. In order to survive until the finale, he chose to go to the Ninja Academy to teach, and he taught there for 5 years. Today, Konoha is peaceful again. Kitazawa stood up and went to the window. It's the start of the new school year again, and the playground is bustling with people. Kitazawa looked down at the freshman information in his hand, and familiar names came into view. Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, Hinata Hyuga, Ino Yamanaka, Sakura Harano, Koji Akimichi, Shikamaru Nara, and Kaiba Inyazuka, among others. 5 years, a full 5 years, and finally these main characters have arrived. Kitazawa felt a pang of emotion. After that, his life was left with only 2 calamities. First, Orochimaru's plan to destroy Konoha, second, Nagato's pain invasion from the Akatsuki. The former doesn't involve ninja academies, so it's not a big problem. The latter is more troublesome, carrying that bag of rice down several floors would destroy most of Konoha village. Kitazawa's plan was to flee ahead of time and ask for leave to leave the village. As for the specific time, he could estimate it by looking at when Naruto and the others enrolled in school. Just as he was pondering the time, he suddenly heard a ding sound. Host detected to be 6 years old or older. Successfully enrolled in school. The strongest Naruto training system activated. Kitazawa suddenly froze on the spot. After waiting for 21 years, at the moment when he had lost all hope, the door finally opened. Lu Mingfei, I waited 17 years, why is your system only arriving now? Wait. What the hell did I do? Am I 6 years old? System, is there something wrong with it? Kitazawa couldn't help but ask. Please complete the first stage of the main quest, dominate the Ninja Academy, and become the strongest graduate. Seriously, dude, is this some kind of idiot? I'm glad you could come, but I'm very unhappy that you got the time wrong. How the hell am I supposed to be a graduate now? Answer me. No wonder they say blue is the color of wisdom. Kitazawa now understands that the system of Byang arrived 15 years late. Does this mean he's going to wait in vain? To dominate the Ninja Academy, you must first win over your classmates. Current task: please gain the initial approval of your classmate, Naruto Uzumaki. Mission reward: fire release, great fireball technique. Whether to accept? Kitazawa was speechless. He's not Naruto's classmate, so how can he complete the mission? If he were to apply to return to the Ninja Academy, Hiruzen Sarutobi would probably tell him, you should hire a master ninja to check if your brain has been eaten by a zombie. Who designed this system? The legendary I-Person team. Kitazawa rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. There was nothing he could do but continue down the wrong path. If he can't complete the task, then, there's nothing he can do. Aside from getting angry once in a while, he'd just get angry once in a while, maybe spewing out a few vulgarities. But what if this stupid system can actually complete its task? Fortunately, the system does not impose any penalties for not completing or accepting tasks. A person can't be this unlucky forever, can they? Kitazawa chose to accept the mission. He put down the student materials and left the office. As soon as he arrived at the school playground, he heard a lot of vulgar language. Don't go, that guy is a monster. You absolutely must not associate with him, stay far away from him. I really don't understand why the Hokage would allow him to come to school. Kitazawa looked at a blonde little boy sitting on the swing. He kept his head down, appearing taciturn, separated from the surrounding liveliness by a sad, thick barrier. You guys are really amazing. They dare to breathe on a little boy who owns a nuclear bomb, and they're not afraid of becoming acquainted with him. Ignoring the strange looks from the crowd, Kitazawa stepped forward. Hearing footsteps, Naruto instinctively looked up and met a pair of dark eyes. He was stunned because the other person's attitude was very gentle, and he could not sense any malice at all. "What's your name?" Kitazawa sighed inwardly and asked patiently. Gaining Naruto's initial approval, this task is actually quite simple. Because in his world, only two people currently acknowledge him, Hiruzen Sarutobi and Suda. I am Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto felt a warmth, his spirits lifted, and he asked, "And you?" "Kitazawa." Kitazawa replied. "Hello, big brother Kitazawa." Naruto Uzumaki said with some excitement. "Don't call me big brother." Kitazawa's lips twitched, and he said, "You have to call me teacher." "Teacher?" Naruto's eyes lit up, and he asked, "Is that the teacher of Class 1A? "Ah." Kitazawa nodded. "Great." Naruto Uzumaki said happily, "I'm also in Class A of the first year. I'll take you to register." Kitazawa reached out, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki excitedly jumped off the swing, but after taking 2 steps, his expression suddenly froze and he lowered his head. He noticed the disgusted looks from those around him. This time, even Kitazawa was affected. "Teacher Kitazawa, I can register by myself, you don't need to worry about me." Naruto Uzumaki stopped and said. "If you care too much about what others think, you will only become their prisoner." Kitazawa didn't turn his head and spoke calmly. Naruto Uzumaki stared blankly at his retreating figure. He understood it somewhat, but also didn't quite understand it. "Follow." Kitazawa raised his hand, moved his fingers, and said. Naruto Uzumaki snapped out of his daze and instinctively quickened his pace to catch up. Class A, Grade 1. When Naruto Uzumaki appeared, the entire classroom fell silent, and all eyes turned to him. This also included the teacher in charge of registration, Irika Umino. Naruto Uzumaki instinctively wanted to lower his head, but for some reason, he thought of what Kitazawa had just said. He mustered his courage and faced those gazes head-on. "Irika." Kitazawa, as usual, spoke with a smile. "Senior Kitazawa." Irika Umino suppressed his emotions and spoke. In the original work, his parents died from the Nine Tails attack. Page 2. Now that Naruto Uzumaki is considered a monster, Irika Umino initially harbored hatred towards him. He is Naruto Uzumaki, a freshman in Class A of the first year. Kitazawa said calmly, "You register him." Irika Umino took out a roster to register, and then gave Naruto Uzumaki his textbooks and class schedule for the first semester. After registration was completed, the two left the classroom and arrived at the school gate. "Tomorrow is the first day of school, remember not to be late," Kitazawa reminded him. "Okay." Naruto Uzumaki nodded emphatically and said, "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. See you tomorrow." Kitazawa waved his hand and said. As the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki was under surveillance by Hiruzen Sarutobi and the Anbu, so he couldn't appear too purposeful. Fortunately, he was a teacher, not a ninja from the Uchiha clan, otherwise, he would have been stabbed with 8 kunai the next day and committed suicide. "Goodbye, Kitazawa-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki turned and skipped away, appearing to be in a very good mood. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. A flood of information suddenly appeared in Kitazawa's mind. In an instant, he completely mastered the fire release, great fireball technique, going directly from beginner to expert. Kitazawa immediately changed his demeanor from heroic to ruthless. This is indeed a smart, conscientious system. Although the fire release, great fireball technique is jokingly said to have never killed anyone, it is already a deadly move for an ordinary chunin like Kitazawa. What are you laughing at? So happy? A sudden voice sounded. Kitazawa glanced over instinctively. Not far away stood a beautiful, long-haired mature woman. She smiled, and her ruby-like eyes sparkled in the sunlight. Light-hearted, invincible, and featuring multiple female leads. Those interested should definitely read on, meaning try to read to the last chapter every day. It's so hectic right now, you might get overwhelmed if you're not careful. Thank you all. 2 updates a day during the new book period, but after it's officially released, I'll be updating more frequently, 10,000 words a day. Chapter 2 Kurene's Request. Kitazawa, it's been a long time. With her long, beautiful legs wrapped in white bandages lifted, Kurene Yui walked up to Kitazawa. It hasn't been that long, we just met last week. Kitazawa's gaze fell on the bandage on her hand. He had been curious in his past life about why Kurene Yui would wrap bandages around her thighs and hands. Kitazawa, I need your help. A smile appeared on Yui's fair face as she spoke. Kitazawa was somewhat surprised. Although Kurene Yui is a chunin like him, there are differences between chunin. Because she possessed her family's ninjutsu. Her father is Kurene Yui, one of the few jonin in Konoha who can use genjutsu. If Kurene Yui is considered a peak chunin, a near jonin, then Kitazawa is a beginner chunin. I recently became a tutor. Kurene said with a troubled tone, but this student is very disobedient, so I want to ask you for advice. Kitazawa seemed to be deep in thought upon hearing this. In the original work, Kurene Yui is the teacher who leads Hinata Hyuga, Shino Abarame, and Kaiba in Yazuka. But she also had a student named Yakumo Kurama. She possesses a special genjutsu bloodline limit, which allows her to turn illusions into reality. Illusion is a form of yin release, and the excessive power of yin release caused her body to frequently experience problems. For safety reasons, her parents did not allow her to study at the Ninja Academy, but instead hired Kurene Yui as her tutor. But she was also obsessed with being a ninja. After being rejected time and again, a yin-style monster named Ito was born in her mind, and in a fit of rage, she killed her parents. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, sensed the danger posed by Yakumo Kurama and ordered Kurene Yui to kill the monster inside her. You've been voted the Ninja Academy's best teacher for 3 consecutive years. Kurene clapped her hands together, leaned forward slightly, and said, Please, old classmate. Just as Kitazawa was about to speak, a blue light screen appeared before him. Current mission, help your classmate Yakumo Kurama return to the Ninja Academy. Quest reward, enchanted tree binding kill. Whether to accept? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow. This could actually trigger a mission? However, having many tasks was never a bad thing, so he chose to accept them. No problem. Kitazawa agreed, saying, I'm quite confident in my teaching skills. Thank you, I feel much more at ease now that you've helped me. Kurene patted her chest and said. Come find me after school tomorrow. Kitazawa pondered for a moment and said, I will pass on some of my teaching experience to you later. Ah! Kurene nodded, laughed heartily, and said, I'll treat you to drinks tomorrow night. Okay. Kitazawa said bluntly, we won't leave until we're drunk. You've never beaten me in a drinking contest since we were kids, so I'll definitely be the one taking you home next time. Kurene said with a smug look on her face. The past was the past and the present is the present. Kitazawa stubbornly insisted. Then I look forward to your performance. Kurene reached out and punched him lightly, saying, I'm leaving. See you tomorrow. Kitazawa watched her walk away and couldn't help but shake his head. He and Kurene Yui were childhood sweethearts, they were in the same class when they were 6 years old and have known each other for 15 years. Besides her, his classmates included Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi, Obito Uchiha, and Rin Nohara. But most of them died in the Third Shinobi World War, and now the grass on their graves is already 3 feet high. Without a doubt, Kitazawa is a time traveler. He wrote in the comments section of a Naruto fanfiction, Infiltrating Konoha, part-time Hokage, have you ever been a ninja? Some things are written randomly, based on assumptions, and then came to Konoha. Because his parents were both chunin of Konoha, he was sent to the Ninja Academy when he was 6 years old. Unfortunately, he was only of average talent. He finally graduated at the age of 13 and became a genin, only to hear the news of his parents' death. Kitazawa came to realize the harshness of reality. Shouting about bonds and friendship as he charges at Uchiha Madara is something only a protagonist could do. He was the cannon fodder among cannon fodder, so he resolutely changed careers and became a teacher. Kitazawa primarily taught the Will of Fire and Konoha history at the Ninja Academy, occasionally teaching practical combat techniques such as the three-body technique. Based on the Will of Fire, he proposed the theory that the Hokage is the sun, and the debt of gratitude owed to the Hokage can never be repaid. For this reason, he was selected as the best teacher at the Ninja Academy for 3 consecutive years. Of course, his teaching skills are also quite good. Kitazawa hesitated for a moment, then instead of returning to school, he headed north. With Irika Umino handling the registration, he didn't need to worry. System, bring up my character panel. Kitazawa suddenly thought of something and silently recited it to himself. Name, Kitazawa. Age, 6 years old. Ninjutsu, clone technique, substitution technique, transformation technique, body flicker technique, wind release, gale palm, fire release, great fireball technique. Comment, so-called genius is merely the threshold to being seen. You are a born ninja, destined to become the strongest. Kitazawa rolled his eyes. He suspected the system was being sarcastic or unsettling. A 21-year-old genius ninja? If word got out, it would make the Uchiha clan laugh for 3 days and 3 nights straight. But when he saw the age on the panel, he realized that the system wasn't lying, it was a program running on bugs. Kitazawa thought of a saying, if a bug works, don't fix it. The training ground on the edge of Konoha village. Kitazawa stopped and formed a hand seal. A large amount of chakra gathered in his throat, and with a gulp, a fireball 5 or 6 meters in diameter appeared. The air was distorted, the temperature was terrifying, and waves of heat swept through the air. Boom! The fireball struck the ground, instantly turning the area black. This system is really good. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then smiled with satisfaction. The power of a ninjutsu depends on the user's chakra and proficiency. Kitazawa had seen many ninjas use fire release, great fireball technique, but none of them possessed such power. It is no exaggeration to say that if he had enough chakra, he would be no less powerful than Madara Uchiha. This is the true value of having the system automatically max out your proficiency level. Hokage's office. Hiruzen Sarutobi opened a scroll. Page 3. The scroll records Naruto's experiences on this day. When he saw Kitazawa and Naruto Uzumaki making contact, he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Soon, he remembered Kitazawa's information. An ordinary chunin, but with unique insights into the Will of Fire. He probably doesn't know Naruto's true identity. Hiruzen Sarutobi nodded slightly. Kitazawa's ability to treat Naruto Uzumaki fairly when others feared him like a tiger demonstrates that he truly embodied the Will of Fire. I wonder what Naruto will learn. Hiruzen Sarutobi's face showed anticipation. Crossing links. Chapter 3 My Deskmate, Hinata Hyuga. A new day. Kitazawa got up very early because the first lesson was the Will of Fire, which he taught. This also demonstrates the importance that Hiruzen Sarutobi placed on it. That old geezer is wicked, he's a voyeur. Kitazawa was certain that Hiruzen Sarutobi would definitely use the crystal ball to observe his class. Of course, it wasn't because of him, but because of Naruto and the others. Kitazawa arrived at the classroom of Class 1A and found that only 5 students were there. He glanced around and his gaze fell on the little girl sitting in the middle row. She was dressed in a long-sleeved shirt and trousers, and had short, dark blue hair. But what's most striking is a pair of pure white eyes. This is the Byakugan, a bloodline limit. The Byakugan, unique to the Hyuga clan, possesses the ability to see through objects and gain insight. Current task: help your classmate Hinata Hyuga retrieve her scarf. Mission reward: Leaf Whirlwind. Whether to accept? Kitazawa looked at the 3 lines of text that suddenly appeared in front of him and couldn't help but twitch his lips. How can he become Hinata Hyuga's desk mate? Kitazawa thought for a few seconds and then came up with the idea of fooling the system. He slowly walked forward and sat down beside her. Hinata Hyuga had a question in her mind. But her shy nature prevented her from asking. She lowered her head, her 2 fingers nervously poking at each other. I am Kitazawa, the teacher of Class 1A. Kitazawa turned his head to look at her. Her skin was snow white, like that of a delicate porcelain doll. Hello, teacher. Hinata Hyuga greeted them somewhat hastily. The Hyuga clan can be considered the aristocracy among ninjas, and they are very particular about rules and etiquette. You are very welcome. Kitazawa smiled gently and asked, can I be your desk mate? He didn't talk about the scarf directly because it would be too hasty. Can. Hinata answered instinctively, but then tilted her head and looked at him with a puzzled expression. I haven't finished preparing my lesson, and there are no seats available at the podium, so I can only be your temporary desk mate. Kitazawa opened the documents in his hand and started making things up. This is a lie. Hinata Hyuga didn't think much of it and believed him. Just then, 3 more lines of text appeared before Kitazawa's eyes. Current mission: become the first student in the class to attract the attention of Principal Hiruzen Sarutobi. Mission reward: wind release, great breakthrough. Whether to accept? Is there such a good thing? This system isn't as stupid as I thought. Kitazawa immediately accepted, since it was something he could easily do. He had originally planned to make a deep impression on Hiruzen Sarutobi in the first lesson. This is called social etiquette, and its main focus is loyalty. Hinata Hyuga stared blankly at the handsome teacher. He's so outgoing. But at the same time, she also felt envious. If she had this kind of personality, perhaps she wouldn't have disappointed her father, Hiashi Hyuga, time and time again. Looking at what? Kitazawa had an idea, and when he turned around, he noticed that Hinata Hyuga was lost in thought, her bright eyes looking a little dazed. No. Nothing. Hinata Hyuga met his gaze, and her face instantly turned red. Oh right, you still haven't told me your name, Hinata-kun. Kitazawa asked with a smile. Hinata Hyuga quickly stood up and said, quite embarrassed, I'm sorry, my name is Hinata Hyuga. Look at you, always being so polite. Kitazawa reached out and patted her head, saying, we're desk mates now, not teacher and student. Hold. I'm sorry. Hinata Hyuga froze and lowered her head again. Sit down and let's talk. Kitazawa withdrew his hand and said. Hinata Hyuga sat down obediently, her legs together and her little hands resting on her lap. She suddenly remembered something and looked up. How did you know my surname is Hinata? Hinata Hyuga asked curiously. Of course it's your eye roll. Kitazawa looked her through the eyes and said. Don't look. Hinata Hyuga turned her head and said, it's not pretty. I think it's pretty. Kitazawa's mind raced, and he asked, why do you think it's ugly? Hinata Hyuga hesitated, her face showing uncertainty. We're friends now. Kitazawa smiled and said. They said it. Hinata Hyuga's cute little face paled slightly as she said, they say the Byakugan is ugly. As expected, the secret passage in Kitazawa was indeed there. This is what the 3 brats said when they were bullying Hinata Hyuga in the original work. The scarf mentioned in the mission was also something they stole. How could something like this happen? I have to get them under control. Kitazawa's expression turned serious. What? Hinata Hyuga was completely taken aback by his words and was stunned. Do you remember them? Kitazawa said in a gentler tone, Don't worry, I'm a teacher, I won't do anything to them. Remember? Hinata Hyuga nodded, then said with difficulty, But I don't know their names. It's okay. Kitazawa said nonchalantly, Just tell me their main characteristics. They are 3 boys, about my age, that's about it. Hinata Hyuga said, recalling the events. That's enough. I've narrowed it down to a few candidates, and I'll confirm them after class. Kitazawa smiled and said. Every class has a few mischievous kids, more or less. In addition, Hinata Hyuga has already described her characteristics, so it's not difficult to find her. That's amazing. Hinata Hyuga blurted it out. In her mind, Kitazawa had become a very reliable adult. A piece of cake. Kitazawa waved his hand and said, I'll let you know when there are results. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga said with a grateful expression. Just as Kitazawa was about to speak, he heard the conversation coming from the doorway. Sakura, do you think our teacher is a handsome guy? Page 4. It doesn't matter if the teacher is handsome or not, what's important is that there are lots of handsome students. 2 little girls walked into the classroom. A girl with pink hair tied with a ribbon, revealing her fair forehead. A girl with a single blonde ponytail, her bangs falling down to cover her right eye. Kitazawa glanced at them and immediately recognized them as Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka. The former is one of the female protagonists in the original work, who, together with the 2 male protagonists Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, saved the ninja world. Of course, she wasn't the MVP, at best, she was just someone who won by doing nothing. The latter is the Ino of the new generation of Konoha's Ino Shikacho, primarily responsible for control and perception. Both she and Sakura Haruno liked Sasuke Uchiha, but because she lacked the protagonist's halo, she ultimately became the blonde loser. So handsome. Yamanaka Ino noticed Kitazawa and her eyes widened. Is this our teacher? Sakura Haruno perked up and asked. Chapter 4 You have lost your right to be Hokage. I am Yamanaka Ino. Yamanaka Ino walked up to Kitazawa and asked, Are you our teacher? I'm. Kitazawa smiled gently and said, Kitazawa. Teacher Kitazawa, please guide me. Yamanaka Ino generously stretched out her little hand. Children in the ninja world tend to be precocious, and she's also a sucker for good looks. To be more precise, everyone is a sucker for good looks. We'll all take a second look at handsome men and beautiful women, though some are more obvious than others. Teacher Kitazawa, I'm Sakura Haruno. Sakura Haruno peeked out from behind Ino Yamanaka with her round head. Very happy to meet all of you. Kitazawa nodded slightly and said. Hinata Hyuga looked at the enthusiastic girls and felt a pang of envy in her eyes. Ha ha ha, I'm here. I see, I conquer. I'm going to be Hokage. A short-haired boy suddenly appeared at the classroom door and shouted in a very childish way. But after shouting, he realized that Kitazawa was also there, and he immediately felt embarrassed. Hello, teacher. I am Kaiba Inyazuka. Kaiba Inyazuka scratched his head and introduced himself. Sit anywhere. Kitazawa said nonchalantly. This is the age for dreaming, only when you grow up will you understand the cruelty of the world. Kitazawa glanced around but didn't spot the dog named Akamaru. The Inyazuka clan, while lacking a bloodline limit, possesses a secret technique for fusing with dogs. Is teacher. Kaiba Inyazuka looked around and found a window seat in the back row. If conditions allowed, he even considered digging a hole and burying himself in it. It's like slacking off in class by reading a novel, only to turn around and find your homeroom teacher giving you a death stare through the window. Shikamaru, Koji, over here. Yamanaka Ino shook her slender arms and shouted loudly. Nara Shikamaru, with his pineapple-shaped haircut, glanced at it subconsciously and immediately looked unwilling. 3 pretty little girls, plus a teacher. This lineup looks terrifying. What he hates most is trouble. The somewhat chubby Koji Akimichi didn't think much of it, grabbed a bag of potato chips, and walked over. Teacher Kitazawa, would you like some? Yamanaka Ino reached for the potato chips and asked. I will not eat. Kitazawa looked at Koji Akimichi, who had a pained expression on his face, shook his head, and said, I prefer some fries. This is a good person. Koji Akimichi breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing this. Kitazawa was unaware that he had received a good guy card. He was unpretentious and quickly became friends with the students. As time went by, the classroom gradually filled with people. Since it was the beginning of the semester, everyone was still unfamiliar with each other. Only in Kitazawa was the conversation quite lively. The only one who felt a little out of place was Hinata Hyuga. She remained silent throughout. She would only whisper a few words when Kitazawa mentioned her. It's almost time. Let's talk again another time. Kitazawa stood up and walked to the podium. He's handsome and gentle, he's practically my ideal type. Yamanaka Ino said excitedly. It's a pity he's too old. Sakura Harino shook her head and said. Yes. Yamanaka Ino said with a regretful tone upon hearing this. Look. There's a handsome guy. Sakura Harino suddenly said excitedly. Yamanaka Ino subconsciously looked towards the doorway. A little boy with his hands in his pockets and a very cool look walked in. The girls in the classroom inevitably became restless. Uchiha Sasuke didn't even look at them, and found a seat to sit down. His gaze fell on Kitazawa. I wonder how good this teacher is, whether he's even a tenth as good as my brother. Kitazawa narrowed his eyes slightly. Sasuke Uchiha is just putting on a cool act now, once his clan is wiped out, he'll truly become withdrawn. Of course, what he cared about wasn't that, but the mission that suddenly appeared. Current task, gain initial approval from your classmate, Uchiha Sasuke. Mission reward, fire release, Phoenix Flower Technique. Whether to accept? It's the same mission as Naruto's, but the difficulty is incomparable. After all, Sasuke Uchiha's parents are still alive, and he also has a super genius older brother, Itachi Uchiha. Kitazawa is just an ordinary chunin, gaining his approval won't be easy. But it's not impossible. Like Hinata Hyuga, Sasuke Uchiha wanted the approval of his father, Fugaku Uchiha. It seems the key lies in fire release, great fireball technique. Kitazawa seemed to be deep in thought. Suddenly, the classroom fell silent. Because a very important person has arrived, Naruto Uzumaki. After the silence, a flurry of discussion ensued. Naruto Uzumaki witnessed everyone's reaction and couldn't help but feel disappointed. Even after he went to school, his situation did not change at all. Naruto, find a seat. The familiar voice sent a jolt through Naruto's heart. He looked at Kitazawa on the podium and nodded vigorously. Quiet. Kitazawa said in a serious tone. The noise in the classroom disappeared instantly, but those gazes would not. Kitazawa looked around and then let out a soft hum. He found the last of the cockroaches, Shino Abarame, who was wearing a long robe and sunglasses. When did it come? He thought about it carefully, but he really didn't remember anything. Class will now begin, but as is customary, let's start with self-introductions. Kitazawa picked up the chalk, wrote his name on the blackboard, and said, start from the first row, come up to the stage in an orderly fashion. He took 2 steps to the side, making room for him. One student after another went up on stage. But apart from the 9 Konoha ninja, Kitazawa felt unfamiliar with everyone else. There are also 3 other young heroes, Niji Hyuga, Tenten, and Rock Lee, who are in their 2nd year. My name is Nara Shikamaru. I don't have any dreams. I just want to live a peaceful life. Naruto Shikamaru yawned and said. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I hate a lot of things, but I don't really like anything. My dream is to become a ninja like my older brother. Uchiha Sasuke said with a straight face. His expression changed only when the word brother was mentioned, revealing a hint of admiration. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like instant noodles and ramen, but I hate waiting 3 minutes for instant noodles. Naruto Uzumaki stood on the podium, took a deep breath, and said with great determination, I have a dream, and that is to surpass the Hokage. Kitazawa nodded slightly. This is basically the same as Naruto's self-introduction in the original work. Page 5. In a sense, he was terrifyingly paranoid. Are you kidding me? What a pipe dream! What kind of monster could become Hokage? You want to surpass the third-generation master? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Unsurprisingly, Naruto Uzumaki was met with ridicule from everyone. Is it funny? All I see is an excellent successor to the Will of Fire. Kitazawa walked up to the podium with a serious expression. You all want to become Hokage, but you lost your right the moment you mocked Naruto. All sounds stopped abruptly. Chapter 5, Fooling, then Lying. The purpose of being a Hokage is to gain the approval of everyone. Kitazawa asked unhurriedly, Naruto is your classmate and your comrade. How can someone who mocks his comrade become Hokage? Many people lowered their heads upon hearing this, showing expressions of shame. Naruto Uzumaki felt as if sand was blowing in the wind and getting into his eyes. His face was filled with determination, and his dream was to surpass the Hokage and gain everyone's recognition. Kitazawa also became second only to Hiruzen Sarutobi in his mind. This teacher is pretty good. Naruto Shikamaru abandoned his lazy demeanor, sat up, and a serious expression appeared on his face. Born into a ninja clan, he naturally knew that Naruto Uzumaki was not some kind of monster. But Kitazawa was just a commoner ninja and didn't understand the specifics. The only explanation is that he was kind. Hinata Hyuga unconsciously clenched her hands. She looked at Kitazawa, a hint of longing flashing in her eyes. First he helped her, then he helped Naruto Uzumaki. He's really kind. Current mission: become the first student in the class to attract the attention of Principal Hiruzen Sarutobi. Mission reward: Wind release, great breakthrough. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Kitazawa's mind was filled with relevant experience and knowledge about wind release, great breakthrough. Sure enough, the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was spying on them. His words must have pleased him, which is why he was able to complete the task smoothly. Unfortunately, apart from Hinata Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha, none of the other Konoha members triggered new missions for him. Let's begin the lesson now. Kitazawa picked up the chalk, a warm smile spreading across his face, and said, Our class is called the Will of Fire. The atmosphere in the classroom changed immediately, and the silence from before was gone. Do you know what the Will of Fire has to do with the Hokage? After writing the 4 characters Will of Fire, Kitazawa asked a question. Naruto Uzumaki immediately raised his hand in response. Naruto, you answer this. Seeing this, Kitazawa nodded and said. The Will of Fire was proposed by the Hokage. Naruto Uzumaki stood up and said loudly. Do you know why the Hokage proposed the Will of Fire? Kitazawa asked again. Naruto's expression froze, and he became embarrassed. This question was far too profound for him. It's for you. Kitazawa exclaimed in shock. Us? Naruto asked with a surprised look. Not only him, but all the other students had the same expression. Where the leaves dance, the fire will never die. The firelight will continue to illuminate the village and allow new leaves to sprout. Kitazawa explained, the focus of the Will of Fire is on you, because you are the future of Konoha, you are its hope. This is the first time I've heard of such a statement. Wow, I'm this amazing. So, even the Hokage will protect me. Kitazawa listened to their chatter and couldn't help but smile. The will of fire itself isn't the problem, but putting it into practice is not so easy. For example, Danzo Shimura, the first Hokage of the ninja world. He often uses the banner of the will of fire to do shady things. Ultimately, theory alone is nothing more than a castle in the air. But none of that matters to him now. All he needs to do is use the will of fire to fool Hiruzen Sarutobi. The reverse of the heavenly gang is said to be true. Get out of class dismissed, 10-minute break. When Kitazawa heard the bell ring, he took the materials and left the classroom. As a teacher, he maintained a good habit, he never went overtime. Ino, I won. Sakura Haruno dashed to Sasuke Uchiha like an arrow, turned around, and said with great pride. No. Yamanaka Ino stretched out her hand, her face contorted in pain. Hey, woman! Nara Shikamaru slumped onto his desk, looking utterly listless. In his view, women were all trouble, especially beautiful women. He just wanted to marry an ordinary woman and live out the rest of his life peacefully. Koji Akimika's idea was very simple, he simply took out a bag of potato chips. I'm eating like crazy.jpg. Yamanaka Ino gritted her teeth as she looked at the flamboyant Haruno Sakura, and suddenly thought of Kitazawa. If there aren't any handsome young men, then let's find some big handsome men. Just as she was about to head to her office, a blonde-haired man chased after her. It was obviously me who came first. Yamanaka Ino sighed and sat down again. Hinata Hyuga hesitated for a moment, then took out her textbook and began to review. She was a good student. Teacher Kitazawa, wait for me. Naruto Uzumaki accelerated and spun around the bend, rushing forward. Naruto, is there anything I didn't explain clearly in class? Kitazawa stopped and asked. No. Naruto quickly shook his head and said, Kitazawa-sensei, you explained it very well, I could understand everything. What do you mean by you can understand everything? How insecure are you? But Kitazawa thought about it again and understood. There was an entrance exam, and Naruto Uzumaki was the last one there. Then what do you want from me? Kitazawa asked with a smile. I want to know how to gain everyone's approval. Naruto Uzumaki looked up and asked with anticipation. You still? This question is very simple, you just need to learn from the Hokage. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then changed his words. He originally wanted to say that you're still young and you'll naturally understand when you grow up, but then he suddenly thought that Hiruzen Sarutobi might still be watching. Yes. Naruto suddenly understood and said, I get it, thank you Kitazawa-sensei. See you next class. Kitazawa smiled, turned, and left. Teachers' offices are divided into two types, private single rooms and mixed multi-person rooms. Kitazawa's office is a private single room. The reason is simple. He could be considered a mid-level leader, roughly equivalent to the head of the teaching department in his previous life. After all, he had been teaching for 5 years and had been named the best teacher for 3 consecutive years. Cough cough. Besides his teaching skills, the most important thing was that his theory of the will of fire was liked by Hiruzen Sarutobi. Just survive, there's nothing shameful about it. Being able to curry favor with the Hokage in Konoha is something many people envy. Of course, if he could curry favor with someone powerful, he would prefer to do so with the 5th Hokage. After all, he's a football fan. Kitazawa didn't go back to his own office, but instead went to the mixed-use office. The large office has 6 desks put together, representing 6 teachers, all of whom are first-grade teachers. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino noticed him and quickly stood up to greet him. Page 6. Irika. Kitazawa asked with a smile, are you nervous about your first class? Irika Umino only became a teacher this year, he's not even 18 yet. I am a little nervous. Umino Irika said apologetically. It's normal to be nervous the first time. Kitazawa reassured him, I just taught a class, and the students are all very good. You don't need to worry too much. Thank you, Kitazawa-senpai. Irika Umino said gratefully. After watching him leave, Kitazawa went to the bookshelf in the corner of the office. This contains the student files for all first-grade classes. He wanted to find the 3 brats who bullied Hinata Hyuga. Chapter 6 Otsutsuki Ichiraku. Irika Umino slowly exhaled. After calming myself down, I went into the classroom of Class A, Grade 1. Why did you get a different teacher? Does Kitazawa-sensei only teach one class? It's a real shame, I still prefer Kitazawa-sensei's class. Umino Irika paused slightly. Did he win over these students in just one class period? As expected of Kitazawa-senpai. Irika Umino suppressed his admiration and, facing the disappointed looks of many students, walked up to the podium. What he wants to teach is how to extract chakra. Chakra is the foundation of becoming a ninja, it is the product of the balanced mixing of spiritual and physical energy. After class started, Irika Umino found that the students were all very serious and not as mischievous as he had imagined. What puzzled him most was their unusual attitude towards Naruto Uzumaki. Who turned them, no, I mean trained them into this state? Without a doubt, it's Kitazawa. It seems I still have a lot to learn. Umino Irika sighed in his heart. An hour flies by. Kitazawa put down the student files in his hand and walked upstairs. He did not find any children who matched the description. Then there is only one truth. They are not first-year students, but second-year students. Kitazawa. A sudden voice sounded. Upon hearing this, Kitazawa turned around and looked at the newcomer. She was about the same age as him, but had white hair parted in the middle. Mizuki. Kitazawa greeted him with a smile and asked, just finished class? Yes. Shui Mu stepped forward and asked, I heard you took over the first-year class this year. How was it? Any geniuses among them? We don't know yet. Kitazawa shook his head and said, I only attended classes for half a day. But I believe that with your excellent teaching ability, you can definitely teach a genius like Niji. Shui Mu smiled brightly and said, what are you mumbling about? If it were someone else, they might be misled by Shui Mu. But Kitazawa knew that in the original work, he was a despicable, cunning, and jealous little black guy. She is friends with Irika Umino, but becomes very jealous of his popularity. In order to complete the mission, he personally killed his wounded comrade. When Naruto Uzumaki is unable to graduate, send him to steal the Book of Seals. After being imprisoned, he sought refuge with Orochimaru and, relying on the power of the Cursed Seal, staged a savior-like prison break. Mizuki mentions that Hyuga Niji is actually just showing off. Like Ataki Uchiha, Niji Hyuga was renowned as a genius in Konoha from a very young age. Such a genius is unlikely to be repeated under normal circumstances. Good. Kitazawa nodded and said confidently, I believe my student has that potential. Shui Mu froze, and the smile on her face almost disappeared. Who gave you the courage to say that? In the ninja world where talent and lineage matter, the level of a ninja academy instructors at best serves as icing on the cake. I have something to do, let's talk next time. Kitazawa pushed open the door and walked into the large office for second-year students. The door is closed. You're so great, so arrogant. One day, I'll steal the title of best teacher. Mizuki immediately put on the mask of pain, his entire face contorted in pain. Kitazawa was his classmate, they both entered the ninja academy to teach at the same time. But 5 years later, their circumstances have changed dramatically. Kitazawa has been promoted and given a raise, and is the best teacher every year. But he remained just an ordinary teacher. Shui Mu felt a stinging sensation in his eyes. There were lemons on the lemon tree, and only he was under the lemon tree. Kitazawa greeted the second-grade teachers and then began looking at the student files. As for Shui Mu, he didn't care. I just got this system, can I stand this injustice? Half an hour later, Kitazawa was holding 3 sets of student information. He stared at the photo for a few seconds and finally confirmed that they were the brats Hinata Hyuga had mentioned. Kitazawa thought for a moment and came up with an idea. He's a teacher, so it's not appropriate for him to directly reprimand them. Furthermore, even if a lesson is to be taught, it must be done in front of Hinata Hyuga to maximize its effect. Well then, let's handle it like a primary school student would. Kitazawa put down the documents and returned to his office. The bell rang, signaling the end of get out of class. The morning classes have ended, and it's time for lunch and a break. Kitazawa took the note he had written to Class 2C, stuffed it into the desks of the 3 mischievous kids, and then left with a flourish. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto Uzumaki rushed over, panting, and said, I want to treat you to Ichiraku ramen. What kind of child treats an adult to a meal? Kitazawa paused for a moment, then smiled and said, it's my treat. No, it's my treat. Naruto Uzumaki pulled out his frog wallet and said firmly, I have money. This is not a lie. The 3rd Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, would give him money regularly. I want to thank Kitazawa-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki added. Although he was a child, he wasn't stupid. He knew that Kitazawa had helped him many times. Well. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said, you treat me this time, I'll treat you next time. The two walked towards the school gate. Ichiraku ramen shop. The hand-beating uncle. Naruto Uzumaki called out with practiced ease. Naruto, you. Kitazawa? How did you two end up together? He lifted the curtain and came out, asking in surprise. Uncle, do you know Kitazawa-sensei? Naruto Uzumaki looked surprised and asked. How could I not recognize you? With a chuckle, Tetsuya said, Kitazawa is my neighbor. What? Uzumaki Naruto's eyes widened. I own the grocery store next door. Kitazawa pointed to the left and said, but I only open it at night, so you wouldn't know. If you ask which place in Konoha village is the safest. Many Naruto fans will mention Ichiraku ramen. After his parents died, Kitazawa bought a house nearby, renovated it, and started selling odds and ends. This is what is meant by better to believe it exists than to believe it doesn't. Anyway, trying won't kill you. Naruto, you've become Kitazawa's student. Shouta realized what was happening and said, then you're lucky. Kitazawa has been named the best teacher for 3 consecutive years. Page 7. Yes. Naruto Uzumaki nodded in agreement and said, Kitazawa-sensei is amazing. What would you two like to eat? He asked with a smile. I want char siu pork rib ramen. Naruto Uzumaki immediately said. Tonkatsu ramen. Kitazawa glanced at the menu and said. Not long after, 2 bowls of ramen were served. I'm gonna start now. Naruto clapped his hands excitedly and picked up his chopsticks. Kitazawa could tell that he really liked ramen. After lunch, the two went back to school. See you this afternoon, Kitazawa-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki ran to the classroom. Kitazawa returned to his office. Senior Kitazawa. Irika Umino knocked on the door and came in. Aren't you going to take a nap? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and asked. There's something I want to discuss with you. Umino Irika stated directly, Class 1A needs to elect a class monitor to assist us, such as collecting homework. Current task, become the class monitor of Class A, Grade 1. Quest reward, water attribute. Whether to accept? Kitazawa twitched the corner of his mouth. I'm out of breath, brother. What kind of ridiculous task is this? I think you're trying to make things difficult for me, Fat Tiger. Chapter 7, 3 against 1, the advantage is mine. After Irika Umino left, Kitazawa sat at his desk, crossed his arms, and pressed them against his nose. He was thinking about how to become the class monitor of Class A in the first grade. It would make perfect sense if he were a student, but he happens to be a teacher. A teacher and students vying for the class monitor position? What kind of behavior is this? But this task is definitely worth doing because it rewards water attribute. There are 7 chakra natures in total. The most common ones are wind, water, fire, earth, and lightning, while the hidden ones are yin and yang. Ninjas are born with chakra attributes, but usually only 1 or 2. For example, if one possesses the lightning attribute, training in lightning release will not only be easier, but its power will also be greater. Kitazawa tested his chakra properties, and they were only wind and fire. Having an extra attribute would bring him many advantages, so naturally he didn't want to miss out. Kitazawa sighed and went to the single wooden bed behind the desk. He lay down on the bed, forming a shape resembling the Chinese character, wood. Kitazawa thought about it while sleeping, and eventually lost consciousness. Grade 2, Class C. Tsunade noticed the note on the desk as soon as he sat down. He opened the note with a puzzled look. There was only one sentence on it: "Don't leave after school tomorrow." The signature was a name he was quite familiar with, Hinata Hyuga. When did that crybaby with the white eyes get such audacity? Tsunade asked in surprise. Big brother, did you receive a note too? 2 boys of similar age came up to him and asked. What operation is this? Tsunade looked at the 3 identical little slips of paper and asked. Should we go? Could it be a trap? The little boy asked with some surprise. She is, after all, the young lady of the Hyuga clan. Of course I want to go. Tsunade snorted and said, adults don't interfere in matters between us kids. The reason he was able to bully boys and girls at school was for this reason. In the ninja world, strength is paramount. If Hiashi Hyuga were to teach them a lesson, he would be ridiculed by all the major ninja clans. Then we guarantee a win. The little boy said with absolute certainty. Of course. 3 against 1, the advantage is on my side. Tsunade nodded confidently and said, I hope we can have a great time this time. Brother, that's a good idea. The 2 little boys immediately flattered him. With a blink of an eye, the lunch break is over. Kitazawa sat up and yawned. He already had a preliminary idea of how to be a class monitor. In summary, it's about disregarding martial ethics and trying to cheat the system. The system only said that he would be the class monitor, but didn't say how long he would be in that position. Kitazawa washed his face, glanced at the time, and headed towards the classroom. He had just arrived at the door when the school bell rang. What? I'm pretty accurate. Kitazawa chuckled and walked onto the podium. Teacher Kitazawa. Yamanaka Ino stood up and waved to him like a cheerleader. Finally, he didn't forget to give Sakura Haruno a smug look. Sakura Haruno pouted. Although Kitazawa is handsome, he is not the same age as them and will eventually grow old before them. She turned to look at Uchiha Sasuke and gave him a sweet smile. Uchiha Sasuke remained indifferent. In his heart, there were only Ataki Uchiha and Fugaku Uchiha. He was so eager to improve and then receive their praise. Women will only hinder his cultivation. Let's start the class. Kitazawa nodded to Yamanaka Ino and asked, do you know who founded Konoha village? I know. Naruto Uzumaki quickly said, it's Hashirama Senju. More accurately, the Thousand Hands clan. Kitazawa corrected him, saying, both the first Hokage and the second Hokage came from the Senju clan. Teacher Kitazawa. Naruto asked, puzzled, why are there no Senju clan ninjas anymore? There are some. Kitazawa smiled and said, for example, Lady Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannin of Konoha, is a ninja of the Senju clan. Just then, Sasuke Uchiha raised his hand. Sasuke. Kitazawa pointed out the name. My brother said that the Uchiha clan was also the founder of Konoha. Uchiha Sasuke stood up and said. After he finished speaking, many people looked puzzled. Apart from students like Hinata Hyuga and Shikamaru Nara, who came from ninja clans, they were not very familiar with the glorious history of the Uchiha clan. After all, the Uchiha clan is now in an awkward situation where their reputation is being damaged. Especially after the Nine Tails attack, their base was forced to move to the edge of Konoha village, and they were also placed under surveillance. Good. Kitazawa nodded and said, it was the Senju and Uchiha clans that ended the chaotic warring states period and established Konoha village. Sure enough, what my brother said was true. Sasuke Uchiha wore a proud expression, feeling completely satisfied. Today we're going to talk about the story of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Kitazawa slammed his hand on the table, adopting a serious demeanor. A long time ago, there was a family. Hiruzen Sarutobi was recognized as the best teacher not only because of his own teaching methods, but also because of his own teaching style. Kitazawa, after all, was a time traveler and had seen a lot. Compared to the rigid teachers at the Ninja Academy, he always managed to come up with something new and interesting. Children don't like going to class, but they love listening to stories. Kitazawa would imitate storytelling or crosstalk to teach them. The bell rang for the end of Get Out of Class. To find out what happens next, please stay tuned for the next episode. Kitazawa picked up the documents and said, Get out of class dismissed. Page 8. Ah! How did it break here? Why do Kitazawa-sensei's classes go by so quickly? I never knew classes were so fun. I want to take classes for the rest of my life. After Kitazawa left, the students, still feeling unsatisfied, finally realized what was happening. Uchiha Sasuke frowned slightly. In the story, the Uchiha clan is comparable to the Senju clan, and is extremely arrogant. But how did the Uchiha clan end up like this? Sasuke Uchiha hesitated for a few seconds before deciding to go home and ask his brother, Itachi Uchiha. As for Kitazawa, he has not yet given him his approval. After all, the Uchiha clan was never inferior to anyone in their lives, and they only respected the strong. Teacher Kitazawa is still the best. Sakura, you bastard! Yamanaka Ino turned her head and saw that Harano Sakura had run towards Uchiha Sasuke again. Hinata Hyuga glanced at her, not quite understanding the friendship between them. Hinata, what do you think? Yamanaka Ino noticed her gaze and asked. Ah! Hinata Hyuga paused for a moment, then nodded and said, it's very good. She suddenly thought of her father, Hyuga Hayashi. Every time he taught her the gentle fist, he would have a stern face and be very strict. She was already introverted, and the double pressure caused her to do poorly in her studies. If it were Kitazawa, she felt she would definitely have it much easier. Hinata Hyuga quickly shook her head, banishing the chaotic thoughts from her mind. Her upbringing did not allow her to fantasize about such unrealistic things. Chapter 8. Is he a genius? Kitazawa returned to his office. After he sat down, he took out the class schedule for Class A of the first grade. As a homeroom teacher, he taught fewer classes than Irika Umino, but every single one of them was of utmost importance. The 3 courses are, Will of Fire, Konoha History, and Practical Exercises. The courses with the most practical exercises are the most numerous. A ninja may lack education, but he cannot lack strength. The practical exercises mainly teach the 3 body techniques, the use of common ninja tools, the detection and setting of traps, and so on. Time passed slowly, and soon it was time for the last class, which was the practical class. Similar to the students in my previous life, I had 8 classes a day, 4 in the morning and 4 in the afternoon, each class lasting 45 minutes. This lesson is a practical lesson. Kitazawa stood at the classroom door and said, everyone, come with me to the playground. Teacher Kitazawa, are you going to teach ninjutsu? Naruto's eyes lit up, and he asked eagerly. Although most students didn't ask, their faces showed anticipation. Only Sasuke Uchiha and Shikamaru Nara, who came from ninja clans, remained calm. Because they all have family-inherited ninjutsu. Before the commoner students had even mastered the three body techniques, they had already mastered fire release, gentle fist, and special secret techniques. These ninjutsu techniques are beyond the reach of Ninja Academy teachers, even if they wanted to. Their purpose in enrolling in the university was simple: to build connections and increase their knowledge. Naruto Uzumaki is an exception. Although he was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki and the son of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze, he had no one to teach him. You're not fully familiar with chakra refining yet, so we won't teach you ninjutsu yet. This lesson will teach you kunao throwing. Kitazawa met their gazes and spoke. The ninja tools are not bad either. Naruto was a little disappointed, but not much. For ninjas, both ninjutsu and ninja tools are important and frequently used. It's boring. Sasuke Uchiha shook his head. When it comes to the use of ninja tools, few in the entire Hidden Leaf village can compare to the Uchiha clan. Because they possess the Sharingan, a bloodline limit. The Sharingan possesses powerful functions such as insight, hypnosis, and copying. He accumulated a great advantage in using ninja tools and even created many ninjutsu techniques. For example, the technique of Shurikenjutsu. The group arrived at the playground. Before class begins, I have one more thing to announce. Kitazawa clapped his hands and said, that means electing a class monitor. I want to be the class monitor. Naruto Uzumaki immediately stood at attention and said, I also want. Many people spoke up. Even Sasuke Uchiha was somewhat tempted. If I become the class monitor, I might finally receive the praise he's been waiting for. Do you know what the class monitor is supposed to do? Kitazawa asked with a smile. Manage the whole class. I think it's similar to the Hokage, I'd call it the Madara. The class photo is mine. A variety of nonsensical answers followed. The class monitor's main job is to assist the teacher and help classmates, such as conveying the teacher's orders and collecting homework. Kitazawa smirked and said. He glanced instinctively at the little boy who had mentioned Ban Ying. Is it possible that he is in trouble? Waste time. Uchiha Sasuke curled his lip. If he, a member of the Uchiha clan, were to serve these ordinary students, his father would probably beat him into a spinning top, let alone praise him. Too troublesome. Nara Shikamaru muttered to himself. In an instant, most students lost interest. Those who still want to be class monitor, please raise your hands. Kitazawa smiled and said, having achieved his goal. Naruto Uzumaki was the first to raise his hand. Besides him, there are 3 others. Very good. Kitazawa nodded and said, from today onwards, the 4 of you will be vice class monitors. Vice class monitor? Then who is the class monitor? Naruto scratched his head, puzzled. I am the class monitor, and I will be observing you all throughout this semester. Kitazawa said calmly, next semester, the best one among you will succeed me as class monitor. Current task, become the class monitor of Class A, Grade 1. Quest reward. Water attribute. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Kitazawa looked at the line of text that appeared before him and couldn't help but feel a surge of joy. This stupid system is so easy to fool. Successfully acquired the water attribute. Alright, let's begin the lesson. Kitazawa took out a spirit storage scroll, placed it on the ground, and opened it. He formed a hand seal, and with a bang, a large number of wooden stakes and kunao appeared from the smoke. Vice Squad Leader. Kitazawa instructed, 2 people, plant the wooden stakes in the playground, and 2 people, distribute kunao to the students. Yes. Naruto Uzumaki answered very enthusiastically. In his view, becoming class monitor would allow him to better fulfill his dream, which is to gain everyone's recognition. Let's begin the practical training now. After spending 15 minutes explaining the kunao throwing technique, Kitazawa said, "Your goal is to hit the stationary stake." With a loud thud, Uchiha Sasuke raised his hand and used the legendary gunfu technique. The kunao veered and hit the bullseye of the wooden stake precisely. Wow! Sakura Haruno led the way, and many girls gasped in surprise. "You are so naughty." Kitazawa sensed the air of arrogance. "Sasuke, Uchiha's mission is indeed difficult. I can too." Naruto Uzumaki, unable to tolerate Sasuke Uchiha's arrogant attitude, shouted, "I'm making my move." He held the kunao in his hand and threw it forcefully. "Oh, I'm hit." Page 9. Naruto Uzumaki glanced at it, and said with surprise and excitement, "Naruto, that's my wooden stake." Nara Shikamaru shook his head, offering a somewhat helpless reminder. Naruto Uzumaki froze. "Mistakes happen all the time, don't be discouraged, just practice more." Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said with a smile, "Those who hit the bullseye, I'll give you a snack gift pack." Snack? Koji Akimika's eyes widened like saucers. "Great!" The students immediately cheered. Although children in the ninja world mature earlier, they are still children after all, and the temptation of snacks is very strong. Childish! Uchiha Sasuke gave a soft snort. He's no longer a 3-year-old, he's almost 6. Encouraged by the snacks, the class was very lively, and everyone was highly motivated. "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." As soon as the bell rang, Koji Akimichi rushed forward and grabbed the first seat, proving with his skill what a nimble fat guy he is. "Hinata, don't go yet, wait for me." When it was Hinata Hyuga's turn, Kitazawa spoke up to remind her. Hinata Hyuga felt everyone's gazes upon her and her face flushed. She took the snacks, immediately lowered her head, clutched the hem of her clothes, and stood there restlessly. "Naruto, this is for you." After everyone left, Kitazawa tossed Naruto a snack. "I can't have it." Naruto Uzumaki refused, saying, "I didn't hit the bullseye." In the original work, his grades at the Ninja Academy were terrible, he was considered a bottom student. How to say? Naruto Uzumaki is a typical stat-based monster, he doesn't need any special skills, he's just incredibly strong and can send bricks flying. Of course, there's another reason, the Nine-Tails interference. In reality, Naruto Uzumaki is a genius that is 1 in a million. It's just a matter of time. Kitazawa smiled and said, "Teacher believes you can definitely do it." Naruto Uzumaki felt a warm sensation throughout his body. He held the snacks, unsure of what to say. "Go back and get some rest. See you tomorrow." Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, "Okay." Naruto Uzumaki turned and walked out of the school. When he got home, he saw a familiar figure. 3 generations of grandfathers. Naruto's face lit up with surprise. Chapter 9: The Fastest in the Ninja World. Naruto. Hiruzen Sarutobi asked with a kind expression, "How is your first day at school?" "Very good." Naruto Uzumaki exclaimed excitedly, "Especially Kitazawa-sensei, he's extra good." After saying that, he held up the snacks in his hand and waved them around proudly. "Did you buy these snacks?" Seeing how happy he was, Hiruzen Sarutobi asked with a smile. "It's a reward from Kitazawa-sensei." Naruto Uzumaki opened the snack gift pack and exclaimed in surprise. The variety of snacks inside exceeded his expectations, including lollipops, chocolates, sandwich cookies, and French fries. Hiruzen Sarutobi glanced at it subconsciously and nodded. "Kitazawa, this teacher is good, we can get along." Hiruzen Sarutobi recalled how he had helped Naruto Uzumaki out of trouble many times earlier that day. He secretly thought that this year's Best Teacher award could still go to Kitazawa. Although there was suspicion of him being appointed by the Emperor, he was the Hokage, and no one dared to question him. "Here, for my 3rd-generation grandfather." Naruto Uzumaki took out a lollipop. I'm past the age of snacking. Hiruzen Sarutobi reached out and patted his head, saying, "You eat." Naruto hesitated for a moment before taking the lollipop back. Besides your teachers, how are your classmates? Have you made any friends? Hiruzen Sarutobi opened the door and walked into the living room with Naruto Uzumaki. I feel that Koji, Shikamaru, Kaiba, and Ino are all nice to me. Naruto scratched his head and said, but I don't know if we can be considered friends now. It's not now, but it will be in the future. Hiruzen Sarutobi was not surprised. The classmates Naruto mentioned all came from ninja clans, and they were all aware of the so-called monsters. Moreover, their fathers either fought alongside Minato Namikaze or received help from him. Not bad. Naruto Uzumaki was very excited and said, I, Naruto Uzumaki, am finally going to have friends. Hiruzen Sarutobi suddenly felt a pang of shame. The treatment Naruto Uzumaki received was far too cruel for a child. But, this is a necessary sacrifice. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is Konoha village's most important trump card and must be treated with utmost care. 3 generations of grandfathers. After sitting down on the sofa, Naruto took a bite of a sandwich cookie and asked, "Do you know anything about the 4th Hokage? Why did you suddenly ask about the 4th Hokage?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's gaze sharpened, and he asked, "Is such that?" Naruto Uzumaki explained, "Kitazawa-sensei said that if you want to gain everyone's approval, you have to learn from the Hokage. Then why don't you ask me?" Hiruzen Sarutobi chuckled and said, "Quite a few people think I'm the strongest Hokage. I plan to learn from all 4 Hokage at the same time. That way, I'm sure I'll be able to surpass all the previous Hokage." Naruto Uzumaki grinned and said, "3rd Hokage, wasn't I incredibly clever?" Hiruzen Sarutobi paused for a moment, then burst into laughter. "Why are you laughing?" Naruto, completely bewildered, asked, "Is there something wrong with this idea?" "No problem." Hiruzen Sarutobi stroked his white beard and said, "If you can truly combine the strengths of all 4 Hokage, then you can indeed surpass all previous Hokage." "Great!" Naruto Uzumaki said with high spirits. Hiruzen Sarutobi smiled without saying a word, not trying to dampen his enthusiasm. Combining the strengths of the 4th Hokage? Even he couldn't do that, let alone Naruto Uzumaki. To be precise, it's impossible for such a ninja to appear in the entire ninja world. The 4th Hokage was named Minato Namikaze. Hiruzen Sarutobi's face showed a look of reminiscence as he said, "He was perfect, gentle, and refined, and incredibly strong. He was known as the Yellow Flash." "Why is it called the Golden Flash?" Naruto asked, puzzled. "His hair is blonde, just like yours." Hiruzen Sarutobi slowly said, "In addition to his speed being the fastest in the ninja world, he earned this title." "How fast?" Naruto asked curiously. "Faster than light." Hiruzen Sarutobi pondered for a moment and said, "The enemy was defeated before they even saw his face." "Amazing." Naruto Uzumaki was stunned for a moment, then said, "I want to become a ninja that fast too." "There will be a chance." Sarutobi Hiruzen said with a smile. Then he. Naruto suddenly realized something, and a look of hesitation appeared on his face. "What happened?" Hiruzen Sarutobi said nonchalantly, "Ask whatever you want." "How could someone as powerful as him die?" Naruto asked curiously. Hiruzen Sarutobi's smile froze instantly. Page 10. His memories were once again drawn back to that chaotic night of the nine-tailed fox. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Hinata." After all the students left, Kitazawa approached Hinata Hyuga. "I didn't have to wait long," Hinata Hyuga said softly. "For you." Kitazawa took out 2 bags of snack gift packs. I already have a pack." Hinata Hyuga quickly shook her head and said. "1 pack is definitely not enough. Kitazawa recalled the scene in the original work where Hinata Hyuga ate 46 bowls of ramen in one sitting during a competitive eating contest. I have enough to eat. Hinata Hyuga blushed and said. No, you're not enough. Kitazawa handed her 2 bags of snacks and said, don't be shy with me. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga, clutching snacks, gazed at Kitazawa, her eyelashes trembling slightly, like a little white rabbit, appearing utterly helpless. All right, let's get back to business. Kitazawa couldn't help but pat her head and said, I've found the 3 little boys you mentioned. Hinata Hyuga trembled as memories of the previous encounter surfaced, filling her eyes with fear. Hinata. Kitazawa said seriously, I've arranged to meet them after school tomorrow, and I'll help you teach them a lesson then. Ah! Hinata Hyuga met his warm gaze and suddenly felt at peace. See you tomorrow. Kitazawa stopped and said. Goodbye, Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga felt a pang of reluctance. Clutching her snacks, she turned and left the school. After walking a few steps, she looked back at Kitazawa and found that he was still in the same place, seemingly waiting for someone. Hinata Hyuga withdrew her gaze and looked at the snacks in her hand, a smile appearing on her face. Miss Hinata. A sudden voice sounded. A young man with disdainful eyes appeared in front of her. Takuji. Hinata Hyuga immediately stopped smiling and adopted the demeanor taught to her by Hayashi Hyuga. As a member of the Hyuga main family, she has dedicated guards from the branch family. Not long after they left, Kurane Yui appeared in Kitazawa's sight. I only realized how amazing you are after I became a teacher myself. Kurane Yui sighed and said. This is my exclusive experience. Kitazawa handed her a scroll and said with a smile. Chapter 10 I am a kind-hearted person. Thanks, Kitazawa. Kurane put away the scroll and said, I will definitely study it carefully when I get back. Want a lollipop? Kitazawa casually opened the snack gift pack and asked. Is it appropriate for me to eat lollipops at my age? Kurane couldn't help but laugh. It's a bit childish for kids, but just right for adults. Kitazawa unwrapped the lollipop and brought it to her lips. You're still as funny as ever. Kurane opened her soft lips and bit down on the lollipop. What about the taste? Kitazawa took out a second lollipop and put it in his mouth. Very sweet. Kurane squinted and asked, why do you carry snacks with you all the time? A reward for the students. Kitazawa casually explained, that way, we can motivate them to learn. Kurane Yui thought of Yakumo Kurama. But, it's not necessary, because she is the young lady of the Kurama clan and is not short of money or snacks. What do you want to eat tonight? Kurane licked the lollipop with her pink tongue and said, it's on me, don't be shy. Then let's go eat barbecue. Kitazawa thought for a moment and then said. Can. Kurane nodded, then a look of reminiscence crossed her face. The last time we had barbecue was during the Chunin exams, when everyone was together. Everyone refers to Kakashi Hatake, Obito Uchiha, Rin Nohara, and Asuma Sarutobi. Unfortunately, only a handful of them remain today. Why are you suddenly starting to miss the past? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and said, remembering the past will make you grow old. Are you stupid? Kurane rolled her eyes at him and said, getting old is a topic that women should never touch. Feel sorry. Kitazawa said with a smile. He knew that Kurane was not angry, it was just playful banter between friends. Have you seen Kakashi recently? How is he? As she walked, Kurane asked. I saw him once last month. Kitazawa replied, he's still the same as ever, looking lifeless. It's no exaggeration to say that his class was filled with exceptional individuals. Kakashi Hatake, a genius who became a jonin at the young age of 12. But he was destined to be alone, losing his father, his teammates, and his teacher, and eventually became withdrawn. Obito Uchiha, unable to hide his tears with Kamui, turned to the dark side for Rin no Hara, wanting to create a world with Rin. He killed his own teacher, helped Itachi Uchiha destroy his own ninja clan, and later transformed into Madara Uchiha, aiming to destroy the ninja world. Besides them, there's Might Guy, who almost ended the series with a kick, and Asuma Sarutobi, the son of the third Hokage, among others. I wonder when he will be able to get out of this shadow. Kurane Ui was silent for a few seconds before speaking. Where is Asuma? Kitazawa changed the subject, asking, is he still in contact with you? I receive a letter every few days. Kurane Ui pouted. Kitazawa keenly sensed a hint of impatience. In the original work, Sarutobi Asuma pursued Kurane Ui relentlessly, and finally won her heart before the Fourth Shinobi World War. But about 10 years have passed since then, so they are still not together. He's quite persistent. Kitazawa smiled and said, even in the metropolis of the Land of Fire, I haven't forgotten you. Because of his rebellious nature, Sarutobi Asuma went to the Land of Fire to become a guardian ninja after the Third Shinobi World War. Guardian ninjas are those who protect the daimyo of the Land of Fire. Although the original work doesn't specify when he returned to the village, it was most likely the year Naruto and his friends graduated. After returning to the village, he became the mentor of Nara Shikamaru, Akimichi Koji, and Yamanaka Ino. Forget about that, how many drinks are you planning to have tonight? Kurane crossed her arms, stretched out her fair arms, and asked. I'd risk my life to be with this beautiful woman. Kitazawa looked at her graceful figure and couldn't help but smile. He had no feelings for Kurane before, not because he was a warrior of pure love, but because he was too weak and only thought about saving his life. But now that he has the system, he no longer needs to worry about his strength. He is a kind-hearted man who cannot bear to see his wife, now a widow, in her twilight years. Cough cough. Currently, the relationship between Sarutobi Asuma and Ui Kurane is limited to that of a pursuer and the pursued, and cannot be considered particularly close. He was just competing fairly. Really? Kurane Ui said with a smile, it's not too late for you to back out now. Then please be kind with your words. Kitazawa replied readily. I'll let you off this time, since you helped me. Kurane Ui waved her hand and said generously. As they spoke, the two walked into the barbecue restaurant. Page 11. Try my cooking today. After Kitazawa sat down, he took the initiative to grill the meat. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. Kurane picked up the sake bottle, poured 2 cups of sake, and asked, why did you want to become a teacher? In the ninja world, the most respected profession is naturally that of a ninja, especially the strongest among them. Being a ninja academy teacher is not a particularly honorable position. In the minds of many ninjas, only mediocre chunin would become ninja academy teachers. It's my interest. Kitazawa said casually. Is that so? Kurane nodded and said, but you are indeed very suitable to be a teacher. Have you been working as a tutor all this time? Kitazawa flipped the pork belly over, and a delicious aroma filled the air. Ah! Kurane paused for a moment and said, but we still have to do the tasks assigned to the village. Apart from the teachers at the Ninja Academy, all ninjas have to do missions regularly. Of course, the Konoha leadership has the right to make their own choices. For example, Tsunade. After developing hemophobia, he wandered the ninja world and gambled, and even kidnapped Shizuan. But she neither returned to the village nor did she complete any missions, leaving Konoha village helpless against her. Jiraiya was similar to her. Come see me when you have time. Kitazawa chuckled, thinking of Kurama Yakumo's mission, and said, I can also help you teach that student. According to the original story, Kurane Ui spent several years before finally resolving Yakumo Kurama's problem with the help of Naruto Uzumaki and others. That will be troublesome, Kitazawa. Kurane did not refuse. It's settled then. Come to me if you encounter any problems. Kitazawa raised his glass and said. Whether we can complete the mission depends on this wave. Kurane Yui paused for a moment, looking at his sincere expression. A strange feeling flashed through her heart. She felt that Kitazawa's attitude towards her was somewhat different today. Could it be? Kurane quickly dismissed this misconception. Because this doesn't match her impression of Kitazawa. In her opinion, Kitazawa was gentle to everyone, but given his appearance, the fact that he didn't have a girlfriend meant that he had no interest in her at all. Cheers! Kurane picked up her wine glass, clinked it against hers, and then drank it all in one gulp. Chapter 11 Drunken Sunset Red. The Uchiha clan's stronghold. I'm back, Mom! Uchiha Sasuke shouted as he took off his shoes. Welcome home, Sasuke! Uchiha Mikoto's gentle voice soon rang out. What about brother? Uchiha Sasuke walked into the living room and asked impatiently. Why do you always look for your brother as soon as you get home? Mikoto Uchiha reached out and patted his head, asking with a smile. I have important business to discuss with him. Uchiha Sasuke pouted, emphasizing with some displeasure. Your brother hasn't come back yet. Seeing how cute he was, Mikoto Uchiha's smile deepened. Then I'll wait for him. Uchiha Sasuke sat down on the sofa. I went to cook. Mikoto Uchiha took a couple of steps, then suddenly remembered something and turned back to ask, weren't you supposed to go to school today? How was school? Ninja Playhouse, it's not very interesting. Sasuke Uchiha said proudly, I will be just like my brother, and take first place in the Ninja Academy. Come on! Mikoto Uchiha clenched her fist and waved her hand. A moment later, the door opened. Elder brother! Uchiha Sasuke immediately got up and went to the door. Sasuke! Itachi Uchiha smiled gently. Is our Uchiha clan not as powerful as it used to be? Uchiha Sasuke asked directly. Itachi Uchiha opened his mouth, then fell silent. Has even Sasuke noticed? The Uchiha clan was indeed facing a life-or-death crisis. I had a Konoha history class today, and the teacher told me the story of how Konoha was founded. Sasuke Uchiha exclaimed in amazement. Back then, the Uchiha clan, like the Senju clan, enjoyed extremely high prestige. It turned out to be the case. Itachi Uchiha's face showed a look of realization, and he breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't want Sasuke Uchiha to get involved in the conflict between the Uchiha clan and Konoha. You're a good teacher, you even know how to talk about the history of the Uchiha clan. Itachi Uchiha smiled and said. Why do you say that? Uchiha Sasuke asked, puzzled. He was unaware that the Uchiha clan had almost reached the point where everyone hated them. These ninja school teachers avoided this topic like the plague, and generally just glossed over this part of history. Nothing. Itachi Uchiha shook his head, offering no explanation. Will the Uchiha clan ever return to what it was before? Uchiha Sasuke asked with great anticipation. Will do. Itachi Uchiha said firmly. 2. Sasuke Uchiha said with a grin, with my brother around, the Uchiha clan's future will definitely be even stronger. Ah! Itachi Uchiha paused for a moment, then nodded and said, I will get the Uchiha clan back on track. The night is getting darker. 2 figures appeared on the deserted streets of Konoha village. You're drunk again. You're such a loser. Kurane looked at Kitazawa, her beautiful face blushing like a peach blossom. You're the one who's drunk, I'm not. Kitazawa corrected him. He drank 1 bottle, but Kurane Yui drank 3. Then why is your face red? Kurane swayed her body and asked with a loud laugh. Be careful. Kitazawa quickly stepped forward and supported her waist. No. It's okay. Kurane leaned against him. The aroma of alcohol mixed with other fragrances wafted up, and Kitazawa instinctively looked at her. The two were very close, and he could clearly see the curve formed by Xirihong's fair neck and the black mesh lining at the collar. I'm home now. I'll treat you next time, next time. Kurane patted his chest and suddenly laughed, pretty sturdy, isn't it? It seems you're really drunk. Do you need me to take you inside? Kitazawa twitched the corner of his mouth and asked. I'm not drunk. As if triggering a reflex, Kurane immediately said, if you don't believe me, come inside with me, and we'll continue drinking. Okay, you're not drunk. Kitazawa spoke in a tone used to coax a child. Humph. Kurane took out her key and opened the door. In the dim light, her perfect figure was revealed. Kitazawa. Kurane looked at him, her face pressed against the door, and said with a smile, see you tomorrow. Page 12. Ah. Kitazawa nodded. After the door was closed, he turned and left. Soon, he arrived at his doorstep. The nearby Ichiraku ramen shop was still doing brisk business, steaming and bustling with people. Kitazawa glanced at it, then looked away. His home is a two-story wooden house. The first floor is a general store. The items they sell are a mixed bag, including oil, rice, firewood, salt, as well as snacks and soft drinks. The second floor was where he lived. It has rooms, a bathroom, and a kitchen, though small, it has everything you need. Kitazawa, having drunk alcohol, was too lazy to open the shop. He took a shower, went back to his room, and fell asleep. A new day begins, and a knock comes at the door. Kitazawa sat up and shook his head, which was feeling a little dizzy. He changed his clothes and walked towards the door, puzzled. Who would come looking for him so early? Kitazawa opened the door, and standing there was Kurane Yui, looking quite pretty. Just as he was about to speak, a breakfast was placed in front of him. I bought you breakfast despite my hangover headache. With a broad smile, Kurane said, thank you to my kind old classmate. Actually, she was thanking Kitazawa for taking her home last night. Thank you. Kitazawa took the breakfast and asked, have you eaten? I've eaten. Now I'm planning to go to the Kurama clan. Kurane paused for a moment and said, my student is Yakumo Kurama, the young lady of the Kurama clan. I've heard of this ninja clan. At their peak, they were on par with the Uchiha clan in Genjutsu. Kitazawa glanced at the breakfast, which was a simple bread and milk. Yes, it's this ninja clan. Kurane turned around, tossed her long black hair, and said, I'm leaving. I'll just have to try out the teaching experience you gave me today. She is indeed a good woman. Kitazawa watched her walk away and said with emotion. He suddenly remembered a line that often appeared in urban novels from his previous life, don't miss out on good women, and don't let go of bad women. After having breakfast, Kitazawa went to the classroom. Just like yesterday, because I arrived early, there weren't many people in the classroom, but Hinata Hyuga was still there. Born into the Hyuga clan, she is very disciplined and punctual. However, they are not exactly the same. At least Hinata Hyuga will take the initiative to greet him today. Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga stood up, mustered her courage, and shouted. Kitazawa's gaze fell on her face. Hinata Hyuga panicked after being stared at for a few seconds. She tossed her hair, clutched the hem of her clothes with her little hands, and her face turned slightly red. Good morning, Hinata. Kitazawa noticed the change in her expression and couldn't help but laugh. This little girl is really fun. Want to learn chapter 12? I'll teach you. Kitazawa had one less class today than yesterday. The morning session was about the will of fire, and the afternoon session was about practical application. After finishing his class, Kitazawa returned to his office. He casually picked up the assignment on his desk and started reading. There are no assignments for practical classes, only for Konoha history and the will of fire. The assignments for both courses were not difficult, and everyone passed, with a few assignments being particularly outstanding. Kitazawa unexpectedly discovers that Naruto Uzumaki is among them. It seems it's because he spoke well. This is not Kitazawa boasting. In the original work, Naruto Uzumaki was indeed a loser. The term bottom of the class means being the worst student in the entire class, failing miserably in both theoretical and practical classes. The time has come for the last class, which is the practical class. Today's lesson was still a struggle with throwing. Kitazawa stood in front of the students and said, "Those who haven't mastered it, continue practicing. Those who have already mastered it can move around freely." Many people were pleasantly surprised upon hearing this, especially the ninja geniuses led by Uchiha Sasuke and Naruto Shikamaru. After all, free time is equivalent to not having class. Damn it! I miscalculated. Kaiba Inyazuka froze on the spot, saying with a regretful expression, "If only I had used my true strength yesterday. I must hit the bullseye today." Naruto clenched his fist and said. He received Kitazawa's snack gift pack yesterday in advance, and it would be too embarrassing if he didn't catch it today. Hinata Hyuga glanced at Kitazawa. After a moment's thought, she decided to stay and continue practicing with Konoha. Although she had already learned it long ago. This teacher is really special, I like him. Naruto Shikamaru found a patch of grass, propped his head up with his hands, and lay down comfortably. Really? Koji Akimichi sat down next to him, took out some potato chips, and crunched them down. Sasuke-kun. Sakura Haruno flew up to Sasuke Uchiha and asked, "Can you teach me that Konoha technique that could turn corners from yesterday?" "I do not have time." Sasuke Uchiha rejected her without hesitation. Without even looking, he went to the other side of the playground. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Uchiha Sasuke formed hand seals, and chakra surged forth, transforming into a fist-sized fireball in the air. Disappointment crept onto his face. Although everyone says he is a genius, he is quite mediocre compared to his older brother, Itachi Uchiha. His brother could master the fire release, great fireball technique after watching it only once, but he couldn't. Why exactly? Uchiha Sasuke gritted his teeth. He wanted to learn it as soon as possible and get praise from his father and brother. Every time he thought of that scene, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but turn up. Unfortunately, these were all just his fantasies. Your chakra control is poor. A sudden sound rang out. Uchiha Sasuke turned his head and saw Kitazawa. He paused for a moment, his expression changing, but quickly returned to calm. Kitazawa was just an ordinary Chunin teacher, not even a member of the Uchiha clan, so what would he know about fire release, great fireball technique? He didn't think he had any special abilities. "Follow me." Kitazawa saw through Uchiha Sasuke's thoughts. He wasn't surprised, after all, this was the proud Uchiha clan. But he didn't want to miss this rare opportunity to complete the mission. "Where to?" Uchiha Sasuke asked, puzzled. "You'll find out soon enough." Kitazawa led him to a secluded training ground at the school. Just as Sasuke Uchiha was about to speak, he saw a scene that left him speechless. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. With all his might, Kitazawa unleashed a massive fireball. Sasuke Uchiha was shocked to find that this was even larger than the fire release, great fireball technique used by his brother Itachi Uchiha. This truly overturned his understanding. "Want to learn? I'll teach you." Seeing his blank expression, Kitazawa couldn't help but laugh. Although fire release, great fireball technique is the signature ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan, it is easy to learn and very powerful, so many ninjas from other clans also know it. This includes Kitazawa, the teacher who has already sacrificed his life. That's why Kitazawa doesn't need to worry about anyone asking about the origin of his fire release, great fireball technique. It took Uchiha Sasuke a long time to come to his senses. If he could unleash such a large fireball, he would definitely impress his father and brother. "Teacher Kitazawa, I want to learn." Sasuke Uchiha perked up and immediately spoke. He's not as withdrawn as he was in the original work, so he's not overly reserved. If you want to master the fire release, great fireball technique, you need to start from two aspects. Page 13. Kitazawa smiled and said, first, chakra control ability, second, chakra nature transformation. The original work did not mention how to train fire release chakra nature transformation, but it did mention how to train wind release chakra nature transformation. It was shown when Naruto Uzumaki sought out Asuma Sarutobi to learn wind release. The first step is to use wind release to cut the leaves. The second step is to use wind release to cut through the waterfall. The third step is to apply the learned nature transformations to wind release ninjutsu. Chakra nature transformation is still too early for you. I'll teach you how to enhance your chakra control first. Kitazawa stretched out his hand, pointed to a tree not far away, and said, gather your chakra in your feet, then climb up. The fire release, great fireball technique also involves chakra shape transformation. However, it is only a C-rank ninjutsu, not a raise nan, so there is no difficulty in changing its shape, you just need to make it bigger and rounder. So simple. Uchiha Sasuke could hardly believe it. You go and try. Kitazawa smiled without saying a word. He remembered that in the original work, Sasuke Uchiha failed to climb the tree the first time. He had already graduated by then, but now he's just started university, and things are probably going to be even worse for him. Watch me climb up in one go. Sensing Kitazawa's distrust, Uchiha Sasuke gave a soft snort and walked to the tree. He used chakra to support his feet and walked upwards, stepping on the surface of the tree. Isn't this quite simple? Uchiha Sasuke took 2 steps, a slight smile playing on his lips. But opening champagne at the start is never a good thing. Uchiha Sasuke walked to the middle of the tree, his expression changed, and he fell down. How about it? Kitazawa said with a smile. It's because the bark is too slippery. Sasuke Uchiha blushed and stubbornly retorted. He struggled to his feet, took a deep breath, and continued climbing the tree. Current task, gain initial approval from your classmate, Uchiha Sasuke. Mission reward, fire release, phoenix flower technique. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Kitazawa raised an eyebrow, thinking to himself that Tsundere has already become obsolete. A flood of information immediately filled his mind. Kitazawa watched Uchiha Sasuke climbing the tree and a question came to mind. How should we explain the source of the ninjutsu rewards from the system? His basic ninjutsu was taught to him by his deceased instructor and teammates. After all, sometimes the dead are more useful than the living, because they can't verify anything. However, this excuse can no longer be used for advanced ninjutsu, which starts from rank B. There are 2 ways for a ninja to acquire ninjutsu, one is through instruction from a teacher, and the other is through rewards from Konoha. Kitazawa stroked his chin, lost in thought. Your archenemy, Uchiha Sasuke, is diligently learning fire release, you cannot afford to lose. Current mission, master a C-rank ninjutsu faster than Sasuke Uchiha. Mission reward, mastery of shuriken techniques. Whether to accept? The sudden appearance of the text startled Kitazawa. For an ordinary chunin to become the savior's lifelong enemy, that must be a setup by the system. Although he was happy to see a new task, it looked simple, but it was actually not. Because he has no new ninjutsu to learn, even if it's only required to be at the C-rank difficulty. Should we go find Hiruzen Sarutobi? Kitazawa rubbed his temples. He hasn't accomplished anything yet, so if he rashly goes to him, it would seem like he doesn't know what's good for him. Chapter 13 I think you completely misunderstand. There was a muffled sound. Uchiha Sasuke fell off the tree again. Kitazawa nodded slightly. Even when he fell and got bruised and battered, Uchiha Sasuke didn't utter a sound. He went to great lengths to earn the praise of Fugaku and Ataki Uchiha. Unfortunately, after one class, he still couldn't climb to the top of the tree. Sasuke. Kitazawa interrupted, "It's almost time, let's practice again tomorrow." "Teacher Kitazawa, you should go back first," Uchiha Sasuke said defiantly. "Hurry is not enough." Kitazawa shook his head and said, "A balance of relaxation and rest is essential for better training." Uchiha Sasuke was taken aback upon hearing this. Although he didn't quite understand it, it seemed to make a lot of sense. Coupled with the shock brought by Kitazawa's previous fire release, great fireball technique, he hesitated for a few seconds before agreeing. "When you get back, remember to find a medical ninja to treat your injuries," Kitazawa reminded him. "Yes, thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Uchiha Sasuke limped out of the school. Kitazawa returned to the playground. Since get out of class had ended, most of the students went home, leaving only Naruto Uzumaki and Hinata Hyuga. "Teacher Kitazawa." Naruto Uzumaki came running over, excitedly saying, "I got it." "What did you get?" Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and asked. "The bullseye." Naruto Uzumaki shouted. "Congratulations!" Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said, "But don't be arrogant, this is just the beginning." "Okay." Naruto Uzumaki nodded emphatically. "See you tomorrow." Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said, "The next practical lesson will be with moving targets. I will work hard." Naruto Uzumaki didn't understand what fear was at all. He waved happily and turned to leave. "Hinata?" Kitazawa asked with a smile, "Are you nervous?" "A little bit." Hinata Hyuga felt her tension dissipate considerably when she saw his gentle smile. "Let's go." Kitazawa extended his hand and said. Hinata Hyuga paused for a moment, then instinctively grabbed his hand. The warm touch made her face flush slightly. The two left the school and arrived at the agreed-upon location, a small grove of trees. Hinata Hyuga felt a shiver run through her heart when she saw the familiar surroundings. The last time she encountered those three unruly children, it was right here. The only difference is that last time it snowed heavily, but this time it's sunny. They haven't arrived yet, let's lay an ambush first. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said. Hinata Hyuga looked up at him, a puzzled expression on her face. "After all, I am a teacher." Kitazawa coughed lightly and said. "Isn't it a teacher's duty to educate students?" Hinata blinked, still not understanding. "I think you don't understand at all." Seeing her adorable, blank expression, Kitazawa pinched her soft cheek. Hinata Hyuga's cheeks became even rosier, and her fair skin took on a pinkish hue. "Hinata, you must remember one thing, to overcome fear, you must face it directly," Kitazawa said in a deep voice. Hinata pursed her lips, then a determined look appeared on her face. She was distracted for a moment and then realized that Kitazawa had disappeared without a trace. For some reason, fear suddenly gripped her heart again. She took a deep breath, turned around, and looked at the three mischievous children approaching from a distance. He really came alone. Tsunade looked around, his tone somewhat surprised. "Does she think she can defeat the three of us by herself?" The little boy on the left shouted angrily, "Big brother, she clearly looks down on us." Page 14. "Hey!" Tsunade stepped forward and asked loudly, "What do you mean?" Hinata Hyuga froze on the spot. Although Kitazawa gave her courage, it was impossible for her to complete a personality change in just 2 days. "Now, when I'm scared, I forget everything and my mind goes completely blank." "Move! Hinata!" Hinata Hyuga cried out in her heart, but her whole body seemed to have lost all strength, and she didn't move at all. "I'm talking to you." Tsunade asked, annoyed, "Are you mute?" Hinata Hyuga shuddered and instinctively stepped back. She prayed silently, "Teacher Kitazawa, save me. You have successfully enraged a lion." Tsunade lost his patience, reached out, and grabbed Hinata Hyuga. Just then, a violent gust of wind arose. Hinata Hyuga's hair was blown up by the wind. She instinctively reached out her hands to hold down her flying hair. But when she came to her senses, she couldn't help but widen her eyes. The gust of wind swept the three little boys into 3 trees. Ah! Tsunade let out a wild, agonizing scream. He felt as if his whole body had fallen apart. The other 2 little boys were the same, their faces pale, filled with pain and fear. Kitazawa came out. The gust of wind just now was caused by him, it came from wind release, great breakthrough. This wind release ninjutsu, with a difficulty level of C, has its power dependent on the amount of chakra input. In the original work, Orochimaru used wind release, great breakthrough to create a strong wind that blew down a small patch of forest. You, who are you? Tsunade broke out in a cold sweat. I'm just a ninja passing by. Kitazawa chuckled and said, 3 boys bullying a little girl, you've really disgraced your parents. No, that's not right, you're the teacher. The little boy on the left sat up, suddenly remembered something, and said, I've seen you at school. Shameless. You actually asked the teacher for help. Tsunade pointed at Hinata Hyuga and said angrily. Shut up, snow leopard. Kitazawa's gaze sharpened, and he said, What lion? This is not fair. Tsunade shrank his neck and said. Fair? Are you sure you've hit the nail on the head? Kitazawa walked up to him and said, I came here to do one thing, fairness. Tsunade was startled and quickly moved back. It's not fair that it's 3 against 1, and it's not fair that Hinata asked me for help either. So we're even. Kitazawa said slowly, 1 month from now, here, you and Hinata will have a one-on-one duel, a fair fight. As the saying goes, only by facing your fear can you overcome it. A month is enough time for Kitazawa to change Hinata Hyuga's personality. She truly grew up after defeating Tsunade. How? Agree. Kitazawa stretched out his hand, clenched his fist, and asked. Agree. Tsunade saw the fist the size of a sandbag and shouted immediately. What happened to the scarf you stole last time? Kitazawa thought of his mission and asked. I left it over there. Tsunade raised his hand and pointed to the left. See you next time. Kitazawa glanced at it, noticed the scarf on the ground, and then smiled and said. But to Tsunade and his 2 companions, it was like a demonic grin, and they scrambled away as fast as they could. Kitazawa wasn't worried that they would call his parents. He had already investigated and found that their parents were ordinary civilian ninjas. Moreover, it was Tsunade and his 2 companions who attacked first, so as a teacher, it was only natural for him to protect his students. Even if the matter escalates to Hiruzen Sarutobi, he will still be in the right. Hinata, are you okay? Kitazawa turned around and stood in front of Hinata Hyuga. She was so frightened from the very beginning that she stood frozen in place. Hinata Hyuga heard his voice and saw his warm smile, and finally took action, hugging him tightly. Kitazawa was slightly taken aback. He could feel Hinata Hyuga's trembling body. She's just a young girl, after all. Kitazawa reached out and gently stroked her head. Chapter 14 Steam Princess Hinata Hyuga. Hinata Hyuga gave up thinking. Her head was spinning, but she felt an unprecedented warmth and peace of mind. She didn't know how much time had passed before she finally came to her senses. Hinata Hyuga, like a startled rabbit, quickly took 2 steps back. After regaining her balance, she lowered her head, her face flushed red as if steam were rising from it. It's so cute. Kitazawa smiled and said, wait for me a moment. He turned and walked north, but soon stopped. In front of him was the scarf that Tsunade had discarded. The white scarf was half buried among the leaves, covered in dust, and had lost its original cleanliness. Kitazawa frowned slightly. It wouldn't be a big deal if it were just dirty, but the scarf has multiple tiers. Kitazawa bent down and picked up the scarf. Current task, help your classmate Hinata Hyuga retrieve her scarf. Mission reward, Leaf Whirlwind. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. Leaf Whirlwind is a taijutsu technique developed by Might Guy. Kitazawa suddenly had a thought. He had been worried about where to learn a C-rank ninjutsu, but now he has an idea. That means going to find Matkei. Taijutsu is also a type of ninjutsu, and theoretically it does not require chakra. Kitazawa considered learning illusion magic from Kurane Ui, but learning illusion magic requires the yin attribute, otherwise, it would be very slow. His task was to master the fire release, great fireball technique faster than Sasuke Uchiha. Illusion magic was unsuitable, but physical combat skills perfectly met his requirements. Especially now that he has mastered the Leaf Whirlwind. He already had a goal, to find Might Guy and learn the advanced version of the Leaf Whirlwind, the Leaf Great Whirlwind. The only difference between the two is that the latter involves an extra turning motion. Hinata. Kitazawa glanced at the scarf and said, "This scarf is no longer usable. I'll buy you a new one." Hinata Hyuga paused for a moment, then quickly shook her head and said, "No. No need. Consider this my apology for making this decision on your behalf." Kitazawa smiled and said, "What apology?" Hinata Hyuga asked, puzzled. "Toranashuk asked you to spar one-on-one in a month, and I accepted on your behalf." Kitazawa explained. "Me? Hit him." Hinata Hyuga's voice trembled slightly, I can't do it. Why say it's not okay before we've even started?" Kitazawa crouched down and looked her in the eye. "Hinata, you are stronger than him, but you don't know how to fight back." Hinata Hyuga stared blankly at him. Just then, 4 lines of text appeared before Kitazawa's eyes. Unity is strength. As the class monitor, I should help classmates who are being bullied by other classes. Current task, help your classmate Hinata Hyuga defeat Toranashuk. Mission reward, water release, water chaos waves. Whether to accept? Kitazawa narrowed his eyes slightly. The rewards for this system's tasks are really a mess, including all sorts of ninjutsu. But upon closer examination, it makes sense. Page 15. This system is called the strongest Naruto training system. To surpass the Hokage of all time, one must master all ninjutsu, including bloodline limits. It's alright, there's still a month left. I'll give you special training. Kitazawa put away the scarf and smiled. Hinata Hyuga blushed and nodded. I'll take you back. Kitazawa took her little hand and led her away from the grove. Goodbye, Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga stood at the door, watching Kitazawa walk away. Only after he disappeared did she reluctantly walk into the courtyard. Kitazawa bought a similar white scarf at the shopping street before returning home. He opened the door and began operating the grocery store. "Please bring me a bowl of char siu ramen, please." Kitazawa shouted towards Ichiraku Ramen, which wasn't far away. "Understood." A response came quickly. Kitazawa sat in front of the counter, resting his chin on his hands. He was thinking about what reason to use to approach Matkei. But after thinking about it for a few seconds, I realized it wasn't necessary. Given Matkei's personality, he doesn't need any reason, as long as the password is correct, that's enough. For example, youth. "I'm coming in, Kitazawa nii." A pleasant sound rang out. A young woman dressed in a white chef's uniform walked in from outside the door. She is Chengpu, the daughter of Shouda. "Thank you." Kitazawa took the shashir ramen and said. "You're welcome," Iris said with a big smile. As I left, I glanced at Kitazawa a couple more times. Like Yamanaka Ino, she is a fan of good looks in the original work. After finishing his dinner, Kitazawa returned the bowl and paid the bill. When he returned, he found another figure in the shop. Kurane leaned against the counter, her long legs straight, her round buttocks pressed together. She crossed her arms over her chest, a smile playing on her beautiful face. Bathed in the soft, warm sunlight, it resembles a tranquil painting. Hong, what do you want to buy? I'll give you a discount. Kitazawa smiled, stepped forward, and said. Then I'll have a bottle of soda. Kurane reached out and picked up a bottle of soda. A bottle of soda can't compare to the breakfast you gave me, so I'll give it to you. Kitazawa said nonchalantly. Thank you. Kurane took a sip of her soda and said, I just came back from the Kurama clan. Did the experience I shared with you work? Kitazawa asked curiously. There are some. Kurane nodded, then sighed, but the key issue isn't with me, it's with Yakumo. She's not good at illusion magic. Kitazawa asked a question he already knew the answer to. It's not that it's impossible, it's just that it's too difficult. Kurane explained, her body cannot withstand her illusionary talent. I see. Kitazawa pondered for a moment and asked, can you teach her martial arts? Disaster. Kurane shook her head and said, she is naturally weak and cannot learn martial arts. It is indeed troublesome. Kitazawa frowned slightly. The solution given in the original work is to eliminate the yin-release monster Edo inside Kurama Yakumo's body. But as of now, Edu has not yet been fully born. It's better to block than to open up. Kitazawa volunteered, I can try to teach her martial arts. In the original work, Edo was born because Yakumo Kurama's parents and Kurane Yui prevented her from becoming a ninja. That's too much trouble, no need. Kurane Yui refused, saying, besides, I can also teach her martial arts. It's no trouble at all. We're friends. Besides, under normal circumstances, she should be my student. Kitazawa said with a smile, I've been a teacher for 5 years, so I know how to adjust my teaching according to her physical condition. You have to go to work, where do you find the time to teach her? Kurane paused for a moment, then asked. This is easy to solve. Just send her to the Ninja Academy. Kitazawa said with a normal expression. Attend class. Kurane hesitated for a moment and said, his parents won't agree, and her health can't handle it. She doesn't need to attend classes all day. Kitazawa thought for a moment and said, I can arrange for her to only attend practical classes. Kurane Yui fell silent. Today, following Kitazawa's instructions, she spoke with Kurama Yakumo as an equal, acting as a friend. During their conversation, Kurane learned about her dream of becoming a ninja. Perhaps sending her to school wasn't a bad decision. When are you free? Come with me to the Kurama clan. Kurane finally provided the answer. Chapter 15 Teacher leads the way in skipping class. A new day, Wednesday. Kitazawa changed his clothes and went to the Ichiraku ramen shop next door for breakfast. He ate while sorting out his tasks. Since obtaining the system, he has triggered a total of 8 tasks. There are now 3 missions left to complete, from Kurama Yakumo, Hyuga Hinata, and Uchiha Sasuke. The most troublesome task was helping Yakumo Kurama return to the Ninja Academy. Fortunately, Kitazawa had Kurane's help. They had already made an appointment yesterday to go to the Anma clan together on Saturday. After finishing breakfast, Kitazawa went to the classroom. The first lesson today was about the will of fire, which he taught. Teacher Kitazawa. Hinata Hyuga felt a surge of joy upon seeing Kitazawa. However, her strict upbringing and shy personality prevented her from showing her emotions, and she remained quite reserved. Kitazawa naturally sat down next to her. The system identified Hinata Hyuga as his deskmate. To avoid the mission failing, he also had to play along with the system, at least to put on a show. Besides, Hinata Hyuga is so cute, who would dislike her? Hinata. Kitazawa turned to look at her and said, come to my office after this class. Okay, okay. Hinata Hyuga paused for a moment, then nodded. Aren't you going to ask why? Kitazawa asked with a smile. What is the reason? Hinata Hyuga tilted her head slightly upon hearing this and asked obediently. Special training. Kitazawa replied. Hinata Hyuga immediately recalled what had happened in the grove yesterday. She is scheduled to spar with Toranaschuk in a month, and Kitazawa has promised to help her with special training. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga looked away, her face slightly flushed, and said. Thinking about what happened yesterday, she remembered how she had been so frightened that she had clung to Kitazawa, and felt a little embarrassed. Why are you blushing? Kitazawa noticed the change in her expression and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Just then, a commotion suddenly broke out in the classroom. Kitazawa turned his head and saw Uchiha Sasuke walking in. He couldn't help but think of a saying, read more books and watch less Uchiha. Page 16. Sasuke Uchiha glanced at it, paused, and then turned around. He approached Kitazawa and said, Good morning, Kitazawa-sensei. Good morning. Kitazawa nodded slightly and said with a smile. Nara Shikamaru and the others, who were not far away, looked at each other in bewilderment. Did the sun rise in the west today? Kaiba Inyazuka glanced out the window and asked, Is this the first time Sasuke has greeted sensei on his own initiative? This is the first time, as far as I can remember. Nara Shikamaru said thoughtfully. Uchiha Sasuke comes from the Uchiha clan and is a genius with a great deal of arrogance. In addition, she has an overly powerful older brother, so she rarely pays attention to the teachers in her class. But why are you being so polite today? I guess it's because Kitazawa-sensei teaches so well. Shino Abarame adjusted her sunglasses and said. Sasuke-kun. Sakura Harano didn't care what happened between Sasuke Uchiha and Kitazawa. With hearts shining in her eyes, she rushed forward. Sasuke Uchiha became even colder and returned to his seat without saying a word. Women are truly terrifying. Nara Shikamaru remarked with emotion. Cough cough. Koji Akimichi raised his hand and elbowed him. Nara Shikamaru suddenly realized what was happening, and with a stiff expression, he turned to look at Yamanaka Ino. Am I terrible? Ino Yamanaka stood with her hands on her hips, blew on her golden bangs, and looked very angry. I'll treat you to barbecue tonight. Nara Shikamaru, quick-witted as ever, said. What about me? Koji Akimichi became excited when he heard about barbecue. Please too. Nara Shikamaru said with a pained expression. The Akimichi family are all big eaters, and he'll probably spend most of the pocket money he's painstakingly saved up. Yamanaka Ino snorted softly, glanced at Harano Sakura, and simply went to sit down on the left side of Kitazawa. If Kitazawa-sensei were the same age as us, she might steal Sasuke's thunder. Nara Shikamaru looked at Hyuga Hinata and Yamanaka Ino, who were on either side of Kitazawa, and said. Hee, barbecue. Koji Akimichi was already fantasizing about what kind of meat he would grill that night. We don't eat beef at night. Nara Shikamaru turned his head and said. Beef is the most expensive, so not eating beef can save you a lot of money. You don't eat beef? Okay. I'm very sorry, said Koji Akimichi. The bell rang for the end of get out of class. Kitazawa ended the class on time and left the classroom with his lesson plan. Hinata Hyuga hesitated for a few seconds, then, taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to her, she quickly got up and chased after them. Kitazawa stopped in front of the office. He turned around and spotted Hinata Hyuga acting suspiciously. Why are you acting like a thief? Kitazawa asked jokingly. Hinata Hyuga lowered her head somewhat embarrassed. Come in. Kitazawa opened the office door and went inside. Hinata Hyuga secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Do you have a habit of previewing material? Kitazawa put down his lesson plan and asked. Have. Hinata Hyuga replied, I watched all the content that's going to be shown today last night. Good. Kitazawa said with a smile, in that case, you can skip class with me. Hinata Hyuga subconsciously raised her head. The teacher made her skip class? She must be under a spell. This is called effective time management. Kitazawa said in a serious tone, "You've already mastered the knowledge in the textbook, so there's no need for you to attend classes." But... Hinata Hyuga was at a loss for what to do. Skipping classes is completely contrary to the upbringing she received from childhood. For a moment, she didn't know whether she should listen to Kitazawa. "There's nothing wrong with that," Kitazawa said nonchalantly, "it's just skipping class. This is part of the plan." A person's personality is largely shaped by their environment. Hinata Hyuga grew up in the Hyuga clan, which has many rules and regulations, which is why she has her current personality. To change her personality, you must first break the rules in her heart. Hinata Hyuga looked at the smile on his face and, almost involuntarily, nodded. "Let's go." Kitazawa patted her head and said. Under his guidance, the two arrived at a wall surrounding the school. "There are guards at the school gate," Kitazawa explained. "We climbed over the wall to get out." "What?" Hinata Hyuga seemed confused. Kitazawa leaped and landed on the wall. He didn't say anything, he just waved to her. Hinata Hyuga's mind went blank, she only felt her heart beating very fast. She never imagined that she would skip class on the third day of school and then climb over the wall to leave the school. But for some reason, she felt a thrill she had never experienced before. Hinata Hyuga bit her soft lips, hesitated for a few seconds, and then jumped up with all her might. Kitazawa grabbed her wrist and helped her steady herself. The two of them jumped down together and climbed over the wall. Hinata Hyuga instinctively pressed her hand to her chest, her little face flushed. "There will be another chapter in 2 minutes. Today is Tuesday. Whether it gets featured depends on today's reading. I hope everyone reads to the last page. Thank you." Chapter 16 The Blue Beast of Konoha. Forest of Death. The two figures were intertwined, moving so fast that their faces were impossible to discern. Kitazawa stopped in his tracks, a look of surprise on his face. His purpose in leaving school was to see Matke. Bringing Hinata along was also a way to give her special training. Kitazawa didn't step forward, but stood still and watched the one-on-one battle between men. He knew both sides in the conflict. Matke, dressed in a green bodysuit, has a rather bizarre style. But Kakashi Hatake on the other side was no less impressive, with his white hair and a black mask that only revealed his right eye, making him particularly eye-catching no matter how you looked at him. Kitazawa stared intently at Matke. Soon, he saw him use the leaf whirlwind. Kitazawa, having nothing better to do, memorized the movements. But just having movements isn't enough, the most crucial aspect of physical skills is the technique of generating power. Unless you have the Sharingan, you still need someone to teach you. Bang! The two parted ways immediately upon touching. That's it for today. Kakashi Hatake paused for a moment, then said expressionlessly, "Kitazawa is here, he must have something to say. Then we'll continue next time." Matke said, still wanting more. K. Seeing this, Kitazawa stepped forward and greeted him, "Kakashi. What brings you to us at a time like this?" Kakashi Hatake glanced at Hinata Hyuga, who was hiding behind Kitazawa, and asked. Page 17. "I just finished class and I have nothing to do." Kitazawa introduced, "This is my student, Hinata Hyuga. I am very interested in the gentle fist of the Hyuga clan." Matke's eyes lit up, and he said. "She's just a child." Kakashi Hatake reminded him. Matke scratched his head upon hearing this. Although the Hyuga clan has a normal reputation, like the Uchiha clan, they are not easy to approach. The Uchiha clan's problem stemmed from arrogance, while the Hyuga clan's was simply due to their numerous rules. "Kai, I'm here to ask you for a favor." Kitazawa got straight to the point. "You two talk, I'll go back to the Dark Division first. Kakashi Hatake disappeared without waiting for their reply. Kitazawa twitched the corner of his mouth. He suspected that Kakashi Hatake was running so fast because he was worried about being entangled by Might Guy. In the original work, Might Guy regarded him as his lifelong rival and tried every day to spar with him, which annoyed him. This is probably why good men are afraid of persistent men. Can you teach me the Leaf Village Whirlwind? Kitazawa asked directly. Of course can. Might Guy gave a thumbs up, his teeth gleaming, and said, a vibrant youth is all about learning physical skills together and sweating it out. In the original work, he even taught the forbidden technique of the 8 gates to Kakashi Hatake. In comparison, the Leaf Whirlwind is an extremely ordinary taijutsu. Thank you. Suddenly, Kitazawa had a flash of inspiration and asked, do you know Rock Lee? He always repays kindness with kindness and avenges wrongs. Despite his immense strength, Might Guy's eccentric behavior has resulted in him having few friends. Rock Lee is different, he's practically a carbon copy of him. In the original work, they became teacher and student who were like close friends. But that's 6 years from now, Kitazawa can help them move it forward. Do not know. Mad Keith pondered for a few seconds, then shook his head. Kitazawa wasn't surprised. After all, Rock Lee is only in his 2nd year of high school. Like Rock, he is a student in Class A of the 2nd year. Kitazawa explained, if you have time, you can go and contact him. Why? Mad K asked, looking puzzled. I think he has the potential to thrive in his youth. Kitazawa said with a smile, he's perfect for learning your martial arts. Really? Mad K suddenly became excited. In the ninja world, the teacher-student relationship is common yet important. Most ninjas hope to find a student who can inherit their ninjutsu. Mad K was no exception. However, his students are exceptionally hard to find because the 8 gates formation is notoriously difficult to learn. You'll know as soon as you see it. Kitazawa said confidently, he won't let you down. Great. Mad K was stunned, his body trembling, and tears streamed down his face. This must be the power of youth. 4 words came to Kitazawa's mind, breathtaking. Hinata Hyuga was dumbfounded. What's going on? Such a strange adult. Very good. Mad K wiped away his tears and said, let's have a lesson in youth now. Hinata, since you're already here, you should learn too. Kitazawa followed behind Mad K and said. Okay, okay. Hinata Hyuga snapped out of her daze and nodded. All right. Might Guy stopped in front of a tree and shouted, Konoha Whirlwind. He kicked out, a low kick that struck the tree trunk, then turned his body, turning the low kick into a high kick. Boom! The tree in front of me suddenly trembled, scattering a large number of leaves and leaving a deep dent in its trunk. What a terrifying force! Kitazawa couldn't help but gasp in astonishment. But upon closer reflection, it makes sense, Might Guy's efforts in the original work are unparalleled. It's no exaggeration to say that he spends all his time exercising, except for eating and sleeping. You try. Mad K moved aside. Kitazawa stepped forward and, using the same method, employed the Leaf Whirlwind. Awesome! Hinata Hyuga learned it after seeing him only once, and blurted it out. Have you studied this before? Mad K looked at his perfectly executed movements and asked. No. Kitazawa shook his head and said. He hadn't actually learned the Leaf Whirlwind, but he possessed a proficient level of it. Kitazawa, come learn martial arts from me. Mad Kelton looked expectant and spoke earnestly. I don't have that much time to cultivate. Kitazawa coughed lightly and refused, saying, besides, we're classmates. If we become teacher and student, it would mess up the generational hierarchy. Learning the 8 gates formation is incredibly difficult, you'll suffer for the rest of your life. He finally got the system, shouldn't he be allowed to enjoy it? The time came to noon. After 2 hours of training, Kitazawa successfully mastered the Leaf Whirlwind. Current mission: master a C-rank ninjutsu faster than Sasuke Uchiha. Mission reward: mastery of shuriken techniques. The host has completed the mission. Reward issued. The art of shuriken throwing is both a ninjutsu and a technique for throwing shuriken. Simply put, it involves controlling shurikens through transparent threads to achieve a surprise attack. Kai, thank you for today. I'll treat you to dinner. Kitazawa wiped the sweat from his forehead and asked, "What do you want to eat?" "Ichiraku ramen." Mad K thought for a moment and then said, "Hinata, how are you?" Kitazawa looked at Hinata Hyuga. Her fair face was flushed with sweat, and her once neat hair became messy. I'm fine." Hinata Hyuga took a breath and said, "Let's go to Ichiraku ramen." Kitazawa looked at her and thought of the second special training. Chapter 17 Mission Reward, Eye Roll. Ichiraku Ramen Shop. "I'm full, thank you for the meal." Might Guy stood up and said, "Kitazawa, if you still want to learn physical techniques, you can come find me." "Okay." Kitazawa readily agreed. "I'll go and meet this Rock Lee you mentioned." Mad K smiled and said, "See you next time." Kitazawa nodded slightly. He watched Mad K walk away, wondering if this could be considered a change in Rock Lee's fate. Having learned the 8 gates 6 years in advance, it's unknown whether he would still suffer the same fate of having his title revoked if he encountered Gaara of Tsunade. "I'm full too, Kitazawa-sensei." Hinata Hyuga put down her chopsticks and said. The large bowl of char siu ramen in front of her was completely devoured. "Handmaid, another bowl, please." Kitazawa glanced at it and said. Page 18. "Do you want to eat?" He poked his head out and asked. "It wasn't me who ate it, it was Hinata who ate it." Kitazawa smiled and said. "What?" He subconsciously glanced at Hinata Hyuga. Hinata Hyuga felt a little embarrassed. She wanted to refuse, but she didn't know how to say it. "Hinata." Kitazawa reached out and pinched her cheek, asking, "Tell the teacher honestly, are you full?" "No. No." Hinata Hyuga felt a tremor in her heart, her face flushed slightly, and she said. "Truly, appearances can be deceiving." He typed a comment and went back to the kitchen. A moment later, the second bowl of char siu ramen was served. Hinata Hyuga blushed and picked up her chopsticks under Kitazawa's gaze. Although she was shy, she maintained good manners and ate very elegantly. 10 minutes later, the second bowl of char siu ramen was successfully finished. "Handmaid, another bowl, please." Kitazawa shouted. Hinata pursed her lips, her blush deepening. This was the first time her secret of having a big appetite had been discovered. Chakra is a product of the mixture of physical energy and spiritual energy. Kitazawa comforted him, saying, "Being able to eat is a good thing." Just then, 4 lines of text appeared before his eyes. "You've discovered your deskmate's secret. As the class monitor, you should help her while keeping it a secret. Current mission: feed your deskmate Hinata Hyuga until she reveals the secret. Mission reward: eye roll. Whether to accept?" Kitazawa's pupils involuntarily contracted. Although he has completed many missions, the rewards he has received are mostly basic ninjutsu. Fortunately, for an ordinary chunin like him, this can be considered an increase in strength. But this task is completely different. A roll of the eyes is absolutely priceless. There is an underground black market in the ninja world, where the bounty for Sharingan and Byakugan starts at tens of millions of ryo. Because of the caged bird, the white eyes are even more valuable. A complete pair of white eyes is worth as much as a Sarutobi Asuma. After all, the eyes in the ninja world are plug and play. Although the Byakugan is basically impossible to upgrade, even a regular Byakugan is a huge improvement. With the ability to see far, see through things, and gain insight, Kitazawa's strength could increase dramatically. If I were to learn Gentle Fist and become a Jonin, it would be an easy thing. Hinata, eat as much as you want. Toki and I will keep your secret. Kitazawa snapped out of his daze and said with a serious expression. Keeping guests' secrets is a basic professional ethic. He nodded and said. Thank you. Hinata Hyuga picked up her chopsticks and started eating her third bowl of ramen. Time passes slowly. Hinata Hyuga ate 7 bowls of ramen in the end. She is much less mature than in the original work, after all, she is still quite young now. The handwritten version is truly amazing. If it weren't for Hinata Hyuga's Byakugan, he would have suspected that she was a child of the Akimichi clan. However, as the owner of the ramen shop, he welcomes these big eaters. Hinata, how are you feeling this morning? Kitazawa and Hinata left Ichiraku Ramen and headed towards the Ninja Academy. Hinata Hyuga fell silent upon hearing this. She didn't know how to answer for a moment. For her, this was the most unconventional morning ever. Whether it's skipping class, climbing over walls, or eating a lot of ramen. It's exciting, but more importantly, it's about the feeling of freedom from constraints. I feel very happy. Hinata Hyuga spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. Kitazawa almost didn't hear what she was saying. The two walked to the classroom door of Class A, Grade 1. Hinata, see you next class. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said with a smile, today's special training was very effective. Keep up the good work tomorrow. Hinata Hyuga felt her face burning upon hearing this. She nodded, then turned and ran into the classroom. It's lunch break time, and many students are sleeping on their desks. Hinata. Hearing the noise, Yamanaka Ino looked up and asked, where did you go? In her mind, Hinata Hyuga was a good girl. But who would have thought that she would become the first student in the class to skip class? I went out with Kitazawa-sensei. Hinata Hyuga stammered. Teacher Kitazawa. Yamanaka Ino straightened her supple waist, her curiosity growing. No. Nothing, I'm just going to learn physical skills. Hinata Hyuga buried her head in her arms and said, good afternoon. Yamanaka Ino seemed lost in thought. Is this some kind of secret favoritism? But she felt that Kitazawa didn't seem like that kind of teacher. The time came in the afternoon. Kitazawa stood on the playground explaining the techniques of throwing kunao. Previously, the targets were fixed, now they have been changed to moving targets, significantly increasing the difficulty. However, it was still very simple for ninja students like Uchiha Sasuke and Hyuga Hinata. They had already mastered it before they even started school. Soon, the students were divided into 2 groups. Students who successfully hit the moving target were then free to play. Just like in the previous lesson, Uchiha Sasuke went to find that tree to practice his chakra control. Kitazawa quickly followed. Hey, do you guys want to go take a look? Ino Yamanaka discovered Kitazawa and Sasuke Uchiha's unusual behavior. Don't go. Nara Shikamaru lay sprawled on the grass, completely unwilling to move. Koji Akimichi didn't answer because he was busy eating potato chips. Hinata, let's go. Ino Yamanaka grasped Hinata Hyuga's small hand and said. As for Sakura Harano, she is still practicing kunao throwing. Although her talent was quite good among ordinary ninjas, she was not from a ninja clan and had not undergone ninja training beforehand. Hinata Hyuga hesitated. She was indeed a little curious, but more than that, she was afraid of upsetting Kitazawa. Seeing this, Yamanaka Ino immediately grabbed her and started walking forward. Before long, they arrived at their destination and found Uchiha Sasuke climbing a tree. Since you two are here, let's train together. Kitazawa noticed them and spoke up. Teacher Kitazawa. Yamanaka Ino walked out confidently, smiling as she asked, what kind of training is this? Hinata Hyuga glanced at Kitazawa, her face slightly flushed, and lowered her head. Training in chakra control is something you'll normally encounter after graduation. Kitazawa explained, but you're all geniuses, so you can try it out beforehand. Chapter 18 Snow White Feet. Sasuke-kun. Yamanaka Ino stepped forward and greeted him. Uchiha Sasuke ignored it, focusing all his attention on maintaining the chakra in his legs. Having made a fool of himself, Yamanaka Ino said nothing more. She looked up at Hinata in the morning sun. At this moment, she was already suspended in midair with both feet on the tree. Her face was serious, and her short blue hair hung down. Page 19. Seeing this, Yamanaka Ino's competitive spirit was unusually aroused. Since Sasuke Uchiha ignored her, she decided to complete her tree climbing training first. With that thought in mind, she immediately gathered chakra in her feet and began to climb upwards. Kitazawa observed for a while, then showed a look of surprise. He discovered that Hinata Hyuga had the strongest chakra control among the three. Is it because of the white eyes? The Hyuga clan's fighting style involves using the Byakugan to see through the flow of chakra within an enemy's body, and then using gentle fist to strike pressure points and cut off the chakra. Once you fall for this trick, you will lose the ability to use chakra, become an ordinary person, and naturally become vulnerable to being slaughtered. Of course, to successfully strike pressure points, the Hyuga clan must have a thorough understanding of chakra. Although Uchiha Sasuke is a genius, he is slightly inferior in chakra control. In the original work, Sakura Haruno completed her tree climbing training much earlier than him. Just then, Yamanaka Ino cried out in alarm and fell down. Kitazawa stepped forward and caught her. As the soft body embraced him, he felt that Yamanaka Ino was like a real-life figurine. "Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei." Yamanaka Ino, still shaken, exhaled a breath. "Fine." Kitazawa bent down and put her down. Sasuke Uchiha glanced at it subconsciously, a question mark appearing on his face. "Why didn't you catch me when I fell from the tree yesterday? Men should be self-reliant, right?" Hinata was able to climb that high. After Yamanaka Ino steadied herself, she watched Hinata Hyuga approach the treetop and couldn't help but marvel. But the next second, Hinata Hyuga lost her balance and fell down. Yamanaka Ino paused for a moment, then stuck out her little tongue a little shyly. Honestly, she was simply praising him. Kitazawa reacted quickly and caught Hinata Hyuga. "Thank you, thank you." Hinata Hyuga blushed slightly as she spoke. "If you sense that you cannot continue, you can jump down in advance. Don't push yourself." Kitazawa patted Hinata Hyuga's head and said. Boom! There was no time to grieve for Ino Yamanaka and Hinata Hyuga's falls. The next to rush to the battlefield was Sasuke Uchiha. "I am fine." Sasuke Uchiha met the gazes of the three people, suppressed his embarrassment, and spoke with a normal expression. He calmly dusted himself off and then turned around and climbed the tree. Although he didn't pay attention to Yamanaka Ino and Hyuga Hinata, he still felt the pressure. The Uchiha clan always strives to be the best and can never fall behind others. Ino Yamanaka and Hinata Hyuga also joined the training. Kitazawa watched and gave pointers, occasionally catching them as they fell. Time passed slowly, and the bell rang to signal the end of get out of class. "The three of you can finish this climb and that's it. I'll go and let them know." Kitazawa said hello and returned to the playground. "Teacher Kitazawa." Naruto Uzumaki saw him and excitedly said, "I hit the moving target." "Well done." Kitazawa looked at the moving target not far away. Although he didn't hit the bullseye, being able to hit it within a class period already puts him ahead of most students. "Hey hey!" Naruto Uzumaki laughed heartily upon hearing this. "Get out of class is over. Be careful on your way home." Kitazawa clapped his hands and said, "Dismissed." "Goodbye, Kitazawa-sensei." Without stopping, everyone immediately started running. If someone isn't enthusiastic about leaving school, there's something wrong with their thinking. "Teacher Kitazawa, what will we be teaching in our next practical lesson? Naruto Uzumaki asked. The next class is physical training. Kitazawa thought for a moment and then said. Running? Naruto's eyes lit up, and he asked. I do run. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then asked in confusion, You're interested in running? I will become the fastest ninja in the ninja world. Naruto clenched his fist and explained, That way, I can surpass the fourth Hokage. I see. Kitazawa understood. Naruto Uzumaki likely learned about Minato Namikaze from Hiruzen Sarutobi. Your archenemy, Naruto Uzumaki, has challenged you to physical training, and you bravely accept the challenge. Current objective, achieve first place in physical training. Mission reward, Konoha Power Cyclone. Whether to accept? Kitazawa couldn't help but let out a soft hum. This is practically a free reward. As a teacher, he was supposed to participate in physical training with his students. But wasn't his lifelong nemesis Sasuke Uchiha? How did it become Naruto Uzumaki? See you tomorrow. After saying goodbye to Naruto Uzumaki, Kitazawa returned to the tree. He discovered the problem before he even arrived. Yamanaka Ino's face was slightly pale as she leaned against Hyuga Hinata. Her left foot was on the ground, but her right foot was slightly raised. I am fine. Yamanaka Ino explained, I just slipped and hurt my foot when I came down. Sit down, I'll help you with this. Kitazawa stepped forward and said, Sasuke and Hinata, you two go back first. No need, hiss. Yamanaka Ino gasped in pain halfway through her sentence. All right, no need to be stubborn. Kitazawa helped her sit down and said, I'm quite good at dealing with these kinds of sprains and bruises. When he was a junior ninja, medical ninjas were in very short supply. The team consisted of 4 people, but none of them were medical ninjas. Under these circumstances, they had no choice but to rely on themselves to make a living. Unless the injury is particularly serious, it can be temporarily treated with medication. Thank you. Upon hearing this, Yamanaka Ino stopped insisting. She hesitated for a few seconds, then took off her shoes. Snow-white little feet came into Kitazawa's view. Yamanaka Ino turned her head away shyly, her fair toes instinctively curling up. Kitazawa took out some liniment, rubbed it in his palm, and then grabbed her ankle. Her feet were so delicate that they could be completely encircled by one hand. Kitazawa lowered his head and gently applied the ointment to her fair skin. Yamanaka Ino's gaze fell upon him. The thought popped into her mind again, but unfortunately he wasn't her age. If they were the same age, she could have easily given Uchiha Sasuke to Haruno Sakura. Alright, when you get back, find a medical ninja to help you, and you'll recover faster. Kitazawa withdrew his hand and offered his suggestion. Ah! Yamanaka Ino put aside the jumbled thoughts in her mind and said gratefully, Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. I'll carry you back. Kitazawa turned around and said. Yamanaka Ino paused for a moment, then picked up her shoe with her right hand and wrapped it around his neck. She lay on Kitazawa's back, thinking to herself that this teacher was truly a kind person. Kitazawa had no idea that he had received another friend card. After arriving at the flower shop in the mountains, he left Yamanaka Ino behind. Teacher Kitazawa. Yamanaka Ino, carrying her shoes, said with a smile, See you tomorrow. Chapter 19 This is Uchiha Square. Thursday. Page 20. As soon as Kitazawa arrived at his office, he discovered an uninvited guest. Kitazawa. Shui Mu stood up and greeted him with a big smile. He disguised it very well, there was no trace of jealousy towards Kitazawa in his words and actions. Looking for me? Kitazawa nodded and asked calmly. Shui Mu's face stiffened, and he immediately felt dissatisfied. What kind of attitude is this? It's outrageous. The meeting will be held in the conference room on the 2nd floor after school next Monday. Suppressing his emotions, Mizuki explained, it's mainly to discuss the content of this month's monthly exam. Thank you. Kitazawa said politely. Shoimu nodded, then turned and left. After leaving the office, he revealed his true colors, looking visibly displeased. Kitazawa paid no attention to Mizuki's thoughts. He was thinking about how to handle the new task that had suddenly appeared in his life. Current task: achieve first place in the class in the April monthly exam. Mission reward: wind release, vacuum jewel. Whether to accept? Under normal circumstances, teachers certainly cannot participate in monthly exams. But his system has always been quite intelligent, exceptionally intelligent. If he takes the exam in the exam room, can he complete this task? Kitazawa stroked his chin. Whether he can do it or not, he has to try. Because wind release, vacuum ball is a B-rank ninjutsu. Rank B may not seem difficult, but it is actually quite rare, and many chunin cannot master rank B ninjutsu. Kitazawa, being a chunin with no skills, didn't possess any B-rank ninjutsu. Wind release, vacuum ball will be the first B-rank ninjutsu he masters. Moreover, this wind-style ninjutsu is incredibly powerful and was Danzo Shimura's signature ninjutsu in the original work. The school bell rang, and Kitazawa walked into the classroom. The once noisy classroom immediately fell silent, and the students returned to their seats. Everyone, open your textbooks. Today we will continue the story of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju. Kitazawa stood on the podium and said, under the leadership of Hashirama Senju, Konoha village was thriving, but unfortunately, the good times didn't last long. Everyone's curiosity was piqued. With Hashirama Senju around, how could the invincible Hidden Leaf village possibly fall? Uchiha Madara, the former head of the Uchiha clan, broke with Konoha due to ideological differences. Kitazawa continued, he engaged in an unprecedented ninja battle with the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, at the Valley of the End. Sasuke Uchiha's eyes widened in surprise. Is there such a thing? Could it be that the current state of the Uchiha clan is related to this Uchiha Madara? The result was that Madara Uchiha suffered a crushing defeat and died at the Valley of the End. After Kitazawa finished speaking, a commotion broke out in the classroom. As expected of the first Hokage. Wood release is invincible. Of course. The wood in our Konoha village is the wood of wood release. Hashirama Senju is known as the god of shinobi, and his wood release is widely known. These students are all quite young, so naturally they admire the strong. Only Uchiha Sasuke remained silent. After all, it was his charming ancestor who failed. There will be physical training in the afternoon's practical class, so don't eat too much at noon. Kitazawa gave a reminder and left as the bell rang. The time came to noon. There was a knock on the door. Hinata Hyuga walked in carrying a bento box. Come over. Kitazawa sat on the sofa, opened the spatial storage scroll, and took out 8 bento boxes in one go. Hinata Hyuga was stunned when she saw this. Only then did she understand why Kitazawa had asked her to have dinner with him. It turns out they prepared so many bento boxes for her. What are you doing standing still? Kitazawa picked up his chopsticks and said, sit down and eat. Hinata Hyuga suddenly remembered something, took out a pink wallet, and handed it to him. What does it mean? Kitazawa raised an eyebrow and asked. Do you want me to be a kept man? Do you think I'm that kind of person? The money for the bento box. Hinata Hyuga explained. This amount of money is nothing. Kitazawa shook his head and refused. No. Hinata Hyuga has become unusually assertive. That's quite impressive. Kitazawa looked him over and said with a smile. Hinata Hyuga trembled, instinctively lowered her head, and 2 blushes appeared on her cheeks. Then I'll accept it. Let's eat. Kitazawa took the pink wallet and said. After lunch, Hinata Hyuga went back to the classroom for a nap. In the afternoon's practical class, the students waited in neat rows on the track. This is your first time doing physical training, so there's no time limit or number of laps today. Let me see your limits. Kitazawa stood on the playground and said, I will give snack gift packs to the top 10 based on their rankings. Great! Many people cheered. First place is definitely mine. Naruto Uzumaki shouted confidently. First place belongs to me, the Great One. Kaiba Inyazuka crossed his arms and said. This is not him bragging. As a member of the Inyazuka clan, he played with ninja dogs from a young age, which honed his speed to far exceed that of ordinary people. Uchiha Sasuke remained calm, his hands in his pockets. In his view, none of these classmates were his match. From this moment on, this playground will be called Uchiha Plaza. Everyone, stand up and watch his performance. They are really motivated. Nara Shikamaru yawned and asked, Koji, how about we give it our all and leave early? I have no opinion. Koji Akimichi readily agreed. Although there are snacks, you may not be able to get them. Moreover, for someone who is overweight, running is pure torture. Ino, wanna have a match? Sakura Haruno shook her hand and said, if you lose, you can't compete with me for Sasuke today. No need to compete, you can have it. Yamanaka Ino looked towards Kitazawa. She's going to climb a tree later, and Sasuke Uchiha will be going too. Sakura Haruno is destined to be the loser. Sakura Haruno suddenly turned her head to look at her. What happened? Why do you seem so unfamiliar? Quiet. Kitazawa clapped his hands and said with a smile, I will run with you. Whoever can surpass me will receive a special prize. Upon hearing this, Sasuke Uchiha's eyes suddenly flashed with a sharp light. He craves worthy adversaries. He believed he had no rivals among his peers, so he set his sights on the long term. Kitazawa is a Chunin. If he can win, it will at least prove that he has the speed of a Chunin. Maybe his father and brother will praise him then. Prepare! Kitazawa shouted, start! Sasuke Uchiha and the others behind him shot off like arrows. Kitazawa wasn't in a hurry. Starting with a sprint is a big no-no in long-distance running, you need to have some foreplay first. Kitazawa glanced at it. Leading the charge was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, followed closely by Sasuke Uchiha, Kaiba Inyazuka, Sakura Haruno, and others. As time went by, the situation quickly changed. After sprinting for half an hour, Naruto Uzumaki slowed down, and Sasuke Uchiha took first place. He has maintained steady breathing throughout, with a very good rhythm. Kitazawa followed behind him, running quite leisurely. After all, the body's functions are what they are. At his age, his body is at its peak. Although Uchiha Sasuke and his friends were geniuses, their bodies were only those of 6 or 7-year-olds, and their development was insufficient. After 50 laps, most of the students had reached their limit and retreated to the sides to become cheerleaders. Sasuke-kun, do your best. Sakura Haruno sat on the ground and called out weakly. Uchiha Sasuke couldn't hear her cheers at all. His eyes were only on Kitazawa, but no matter how hard he chased, he could not catch up with him. Can you still run? Beizi turned back to look at the moon and asked a question. Now, only Uchiha Sasuke remains. It's so uncomfortable. Seeing his relaxed demeanor, Uchiha Sasuke was so angry that he trembled all over, his body covered in cold sweat and his hands and feet were ice cold despite the hot weather. Chapter 20 The Art of Shadow Clone. After physical training, the students sat slumped on the playground, disregarding their appearance. Kitazawa looked at them and recalled the physical fitness test for college students in his previous life. He ran a kilometer and it felt like he'd been punched by Tsunade's monstrous strength, he almost died on the spot. These students, at the age of 6 or 7, can run a kilometer as easily as playing. It can only be said that Chakra is truly amazing. Current objective: achieve first place in physical training. Mission reward: Konoha Power Cyclone. The host has completed the mission, reward issued. After processing the information in his mind, Kitazawa nodded. Might Guy developed the Leaf Whirlwind series of taijutsu. The Leaf Whirlwind is an advanced version of the Leaf Whirlwind. Kitazawa guessed that if he completed this series of tasks, he might be able to obtain the legendary 8 Gates formation. Although the 8 Gates formation puts a great strain on the body, its power is undeniable. Besides, when it really comes down to life and death, who cares about the side effects? Now I will announce the rankings. After they rested for a while, Kitazawa said, First place, Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. Sakura Haruno and the other girls couldn't help but cheer for him. Uchiha Sasuke was anything but happy. Getting first place in the physical fitness test and receiving a snack gift pack, it's double the happiness. But why is this happening? How could an ordinary chunin run this fast? Sasuke Uchiha sighed. The excitement belongs to them, he has nothing. Second place, Kaiba Inyazuka. Third place, Shino Abarame. Ninth place, Naruto Uzumaki. Kitazawa stopped reading when he reached the 10th place. The top 10 were basically occupied by students from ninja clans. Except for Nara Shikamaru and Akimichi Koji, because they ran away halfway. Hateful. Naruto Uzumaki held his head in his hands, feeling a deep sense of resentment. He was aiming to become the fastest man in the ninja world, but he only came in 9th place. Kitazawa glanced at him. Naruto Uzumaki has good stamina, but his skills are lacking, he's just running around aimlessly. Your arch-rival Naruto Uzumaki's low ranking in physical training is a disgrace to you. Current task: help Naruto Uzumaki achieve 2nd place in physical training. Quest reward: Shadow Clone Technique. Whether to accept? Kitazawa was taken aback by the sudden appearance of the mission, but quickly came to his senses. This is good stuff. The Shadow Clone Technique can create clones that have physical forms. Shadow clones can do a lot of things, they can be used not only for combat but also for training and espionage. Because once the shadow clone is dispelled, the memories and experiences will return to the original body. The advanced version of Shadow Clone Technique is Multiple Shadow Clone Technique. In the original work, this could be considered Naruto's cheat code. Because he has so much chakra, he can create hundreds or even thousands of shadow clones, which is equivalent to having a multiplier experience card active all the time. But Kitazawa couldn't do it. After all, his chakra level hadn't even reached 1 chakra level, let alone 1/5 of a chakra level. However, while the multiple shadow clone technique is not feasible, the shadow clone technique is still not a major problem. Why only ask Naruto Uzumaki to get 2nd place? Kitazawa stroked his chin, and after a moment of thought, he understood the reason. The system probably considers him to be in 1st place. Although Naruto is said to be 2nd, he is actually 1st. After everyone had rested, we continued practicing the moving target kunai throwing. Kitazawa paused for a moment, then said, "Those who have already mastered it can move around freely." Upon hearing this, Sasuke Uchiha immediately stood up and walked silently toward the training ground where the tree was located. His physical training has failed, so he needs to finish his tree climbing training as soon as possible. Hinata Hyuga and Ino Yamanaka exchanged a glance and followed suit. "Naruto, come with me!" Kitazawa shouted. "Teacher Kitazawa, is there something you need?" Naruto Uzumaki caught up with him and asked curiously. "I saw your performance in the physical training just now, you shouldn't only be 9th. Kitazawa glanced at him and said. "Really?" Naruto Uzumaki said excitedly, "I think so too." Kitazawa chuckled to himself. In terms of being stubborn and unwilling to admit defeat, Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha are the same. They truly are brothers from different fathers and mothers. In my opinion, you are fully capable of getting into the top 3. Kitazawa changed the subject and asked, "But do you know why you're only 9th place?" Naruto Uzumaki shook his head. "Because all you know is how to act recklessly." Kitazawa explained, you have no idea what running is. Teacher Kitazawa, can you teach me? Instead of being discouraged, Naruto was quite excited and asked. Of course. Kitazawa said with a smile, I called you here to teach you. Thank you, Kitazawa-sensei. Naruto Uzumaki immediately burst into laughter. I'll definitely be number one in the next physical training session. Hard to say. Kitazawa shook his head and said, Sasuke is no worse than you, but you have an advantage, you are physically strong. The Uzumaki clan is naturally strong and possesses abundant chakra. Furthermore, Naruto Uzumaki is the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, and the power of the tailed beast allows him to quickly recover from injuries and regain his strength. Although he didn't know Kurama, the power of the tailed beast leaking from Kurama was enough to make a difference. The two arrived at a secluded training ground on campus. That is, the place where Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Hinata, and Yamanaka Ino climbed the tree. Sasuke. Naruto Uzumaki suddenly spotted Sasuke Uchiha climbing a tree and immediately greeted him. Bang! Uchiha Sasuke was startled and fell down. Why are you shouting so loudly? He got up, forced a smile, and continued climbing the tree. What are they doing? Naruto scratched his head, puzzled. It's training in chakra control. Kitazawa paused for a moment and said, You're not ready yet. Let me tell you about running techniques first. Okay. Naruto Uzumaki perked up and adopted a serious attitude. The most important thing in running is to master the correct running posture and stride. Kitazawa concluded, it's all about having a rhythm. I see. Naruto Uzumaki nodded vigorously and said, I understand. Whether you understand or not, you'll only know after you try it. Page 22. Kitazawa was pessimistic about his learning ability. In the original work, Naruto Uzumaki's theoretical knowledge was a complete mess, except for his ninjutsu, otherwise, he wouldn't have been the worst student. Alright, you can run on the training field now. I'll point out any problems you encounter. Kitazawa patted him on the shoulder and said. Okay. Naruto Uzumaki immediately started running. Kitazawa's lips twitched. What a monster! Having just finished physical training, and after only a few minutes of rest, he's back to his energetic self. Kitazawa felt envious. Fortunately, he now has a system. With the system's help, it wouldn't be a problem for him to catch up with Naruto Uzumaki in terms of physique and chakra. Kitazawa glanced again at Uchiha Sasuke, Yamanaka Ino, and Hyuga Hinata, who were climbing the tree. He now looks like a teacher. Saturday has arrived. Kitazawa raised his hand and knocked on the door. The door opened, revealing a beautiful face. So early? Kurane yawned and asked. Kitazawa's eyes lit up. She was wearing a kimono-style nightgown, also known as a yukata. The tight-fitting yukata accentuated her curvaceous figure, especially her full breasts. Although it is far less than Tsunade's, it is still quite large in scale. End of the video. Like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for more novels like this.